Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Port Commission meeting for March 21st, 2017. We opened the public meeting at 3 o'clock. I recessed it right away and we went into an executive session to discuss a legal matter and a real estate matter. We are now going to recess or close the executive session and reconvene the public meeting. Our first item is a roll call. If you could, please, Diane.
Let the record show that all three commissioners are in attendance today.
Thank you. Announcement for our different committees. The BIAC, Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, will meet on April 13th at 5 o'clock at the ARF building at the airport. The Technical Advisory Committee does not have a date set for their next meeting at this point. And the Marine Advisory Committee is April 11th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. here in this room. And under some housekeeping for a minute, there's plenty of seats up front. If any of you want to move up forward here, there's plenty of seats. I'm going to change the agenda just a little bit. We're going to start with the public comment period, and then we're going to move the mayor's comments up above our consent agenda so that we don't have to sit through our boilerplate stuff. If there's anyone who isn't here to talk about the homeless shelter, I think we'll let you speak first so that you don't, it looks like there's a lot of people signed up to comment. So if there's anyone signed up, some of you didn't write this subject. So is there someone here, something about Whatcom Community College? Is Brian Day?
Sorry, that was a working waterfront coalition.
Oh, okay, there we go. Is there anyone here that has a public comment other than on the waterfront or the homeless shelter and waterfront? Please go to the microphone. In fact, everyone, please, you're going to have to state your name, and we'll do it from the podium here. It's recorded. So rather than me call your name, once we get started on the homeless shelter, if someone's speaking, the next person can just go up, whoever wants to speak after them, and stand there. And that way we don't take quite as much time. That way everyone can speak, I hope. Yes, sir. Introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Allers, and I'm here on behalf of Pacific Pile and Marine, and we'd like to be heard when the commission takes up the award of the Harris Avenue Shipyard site cleanup. And I'd like to reserve my comment for when the commission considers that award. We do not believe that the low responsible bidder is in fact the low bidder, but is Pacific Pile and Marine, and we can talk about that.
You're welcome to make that comment at this time.
Okay.
Rather
All
than later on, if you would, please.
I don't know that I can get it all done in 3 minutes, but I'll do my best. It used to be before about 10 years ago that all these public works projects were let on a low bid basis. That was in the old days. There was a saying, and I don't know who to attribute this to, but that the bitterness of a poor quality lingers long after the sweetness of the low price is forgotten. Public works owners changed the laws in the state of Washington, and now we have a legal framework whereby public works owners, such as the port, can put in supplemental bidder criteria as they did on the Harris Avenue project, and select a contractor that's qualified rather than the low price. In this instance, the port had a number of criteria that it requested that the bidders comply with, and qualifications. As it turns out, the low bidder read those qualifications very narrowly, and in our view, and we've provided the port with a letter in that regard, they do not meet the responsibility criteria because they're not doing the work themselves. Pacific Pile and Marine is going to do all of the work itself. It has all of the equipment. It has all of the qualified people to do it. It is not a broker. It is providing a service, and its price was not the low price. It was the second low price. And they're qualified. The low bidder is a general contractor that's going to sub out the work. We don't know to whom. They have not revealed that. But it was important to the port to put in its bid documents these qualification requirements, and my client met those qualification requirements. The low bidder does not. And I have a couple other people here from Pacific Pile and Marine that can also comment on that. And I can certainly answer questions, and I'm prepared to do so when the matter is taken up by the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else on that same issue? Please come forward.
Hi, Commission. My name is Will Clark. I'm the president and owner of Pacific Pile Marine. We've been doing environmental dredging for some 20 years now, and we've really prided ourselves into staying engaged with the agencies, Department of Ecology, EPA, and we're actually involved with some of the projects that brought in the criteria basis for the projects that we see from the Department of Ecology, where they actually put in 50% of the funds for these particular sites. Thing about for us as a company, we have a lot of capital tied up into the equipment that's specialized for this work. The people are highly skilled and trained. We put a lot of effort and money into bidding a job like this. And this is a normal job that we see in that Department of Ecology arena in the state of Washington, where they're trying to take sites and turn them around and make them productive operations. The frustrating thing for myself and talking with the Department of Ecology is that, you know, it's clearly they set up these projects where they put this narrow criteria in. And as I was talking to the Department of Ecology, they said, well, that's what we intended, is people that are qualified to do the work. I said, well, if that isn't the intent, and if that's not what the Port wants, obviously you can prescribe lower bids by hiring anyone to do the remediation parts of the contract. So I'm here today to ask that you guys consider your decision, and knowing that we're very interested and we've worked for you folks in the past. I'd like to turn this over to our chief estimator, who had some closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacob Zacarta, senior estimator with Pacific Pile and Marine. But I'll be pretty short and sweet with it. But, you know, for every project, plans and specifications are developed and issued to make it fair for every bidder. Obviously, they're put in place to advise the contractor as to what really the owner wants. They're also put in place to protect the owner. And in this case, there's an addendum or an Appendix E, which calls out supplemental bidder information, and there was 7 criteria that was listed. And I think for each of those criteria, there was a minimum of 2 projects, which the responsible bidder was supposed to demonstrate. And under three of those 7 criterias, we feel that the low bidder does not meet the criteria. And so again, we just ask that you reconsider that.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone? Yes, sir. Come forward. Thank you.
Tyler Kimberly, president of IMCO General Construction. We're the low bidder on the Harris Avenue project. We are a family-owned business based here in Whatcom County. This company was started by my father-in-law in 1978. This will be our eighth project, if awarded to us, for the Port of Bellingham. We've been working for the port since 1990. This would be of those 8 projects, 2 of them have been waterfront marine projects that are the second bidder is proposing that we don't have qualifications for. So we have a history of doing work, maritime work for the Port of Bellingham. So this Harris Avenue project is a job we've been tracking for over a year. When we go after projects, we look for 4 criteria. This project meets all 4. We look for complicated schedules. This job has both operational needs for the shipyard and the fish window seasons that impact the complication of the schedule. We like to work in operating facilities, and so that can, in this case, that's a shipyard that's got to stay operating which is extremely critical to the port, that shipyard stay operational while we build this project. Number 3 is the self-performance, and I take exception with some of the previous comments. We will be subcontracting the dredging portion, but that's only about a 20%, 20 to 30% of the value of this project. The rest of the project, for probably about 60% of the dollar value of the project, we will be self-performing. There's a very, very important part of this scope of the work, which is the under pier and above pier utilities. Those utility work that keep the shipyard operational will be self-performed by our company and would be subcontracted by the second bidder. That's in order to keep the shipyard operating. That's a very important part of the job that needs to be done well. So we will be self-performing that, which they wouldn't be. The self-performance is an important part. And then the 4th piece is geotechnically complicated, which this project is very geotechnically complicated. You got pile, you have in-water work, and you got contaminated soils to deal with. So it meets the 4 out of 4 criteria. When it does that, we provide a lot of value for our clients. Value is partly price, but it's also quality and safety. And so we're very well prepared to deliver that for you, the port, on this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kimberly. Is there anyone else that is here to speak on an issue other than the homeless shelter? Okay, then we'll start with the first speaker, who's Brian Pemberton. And anyone can line up after him and state your name, and now, by the way, gentlemen, on that contract, that's our first action item, and we'll probably take it up about, it probably won't be till 5:30. You're welcome to stay through this, but it won't be till about 5:30 that'll be our first action item. Yes, sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioners, Executive Director Fix, Mayor Linville. Thank you for being here. I think your presence says volumes for you, and thank you for your attendance here. My name's Brian Pemberton. I own Northwest Explorations. We sell boats, we charter boats, and we provide maintenance and service on them. We have about 30 full-time employees. In the summertime, about 50. Our business depends on access to boat yards and to the water itself. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't recognize all of the people who here that make their livings with their hands, who make this waterfront great with their unique skills. That these are the people that allow the marine trades to be successful in our community. My company or the companies of many others who are here today would not be successful without these people in the room. Just like a logger needs to be able to get to trees, or a fisherman needs to be able to get to the fish, farmers need to get to their land, these workers need to be able to get to their boats and job sites to be able to continue to earn good livings and to be able to help continue to make this a viable working waterfront. I recently had a stroke and lost some of my memory, so if I stumble here a bit, please forgive me. But I remember, if correctly, a few years ago, the city and the port were kind of at loggerheads. They weren't talking to each other. And then we got a new mayor. And then we had a new executive director. And it's kind of unthinkable in today's political environment, but you know what they did? They talked to each other. They went off and sat down and they talked, and they came down and out of their meeting, they sat down and said, we've done the great land swap. And I think most of us said, hey, this kind of makes sense. This was good for the Port of Bellingham. This was good for the city of Bellingham. And it was really good for the workers and residents of Whatcom County. And so this is simply a Rubik's Cube. This can be solved. We're not dealing with rocket science here. I used to be CEO of a company that had rockets. And I tell you, this is solvable. And so my suggestion here, and a lot of people following me will be able to be far more articulate than I am in terms of the precise details of this, but I would highly urge that perhaps Executive Director Fix and Mayor Linville go back off to the top of the mountain, have a seance, and hopefully walk back down and be able to say, we have an option here that is workable, that's workable for all of these good men and women that we all depend on to make sure that this remains a very viable and good working waterfront. Thank you for your time.
Brian, thank you for your comments, and thank you for chairing the MAC committee for the committee, Marine Advisory Committee. Really appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Rick Sale. I'm General Manager of San Juan Sailing and Yachting, another charter company. I want to second everything that Brian has said. I just want to let you know the charter companies are a base economic industry in this town. We import dollars from Seattle, from Portland, from Eastern Washington, and all the way down to California. And our company imports about $2.5 million a year. We have charter guests that come and spend another million or $1.5 million at the restaurants and the stores and the hotels here in town. And we have about 50 people that we count on who work anywhere from 30 to 40 or more hours a year in support of our business. And 5 of those companies, 20% of the people we count on to help our business stay viable, and they have to have viable businesses to help us stay viable, are being displaced by this eviction from the building. And we would certainly urge that the port consider buying this property from the city, if that's an option, so that we can keep the working waterfront area fully staffed with key people that support this industry. And I also want to mention that we also hire about 25 college kids for summer jobs, and we'd hate to lose that option as well. So we'd like to stay viable, and we'd like the companies that support us to stay viable. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Hi, my name is J.R. Johnson. I work down in the marine industry as well as a broker, both boats and seafood. Much of the folks that I work with do their jobs down there on C Street as well. But I really want to voice my concern as a member of the boat owners and those that have boats dry docked there on C Street. It is one of the last do-it-yourself dry docks, and as such, there is easy in and out access to that area there. As it is, stuff seems to walk away when people aren't around, and you'll see that with the ladders that are chained to everybody's boat stilts. And so I shake to really think, and in no way trying to disparage or stereotype the homeless community, but would still be very concerned with the security of the boats and everything associated with those boats that are down there. I did notice, actually, I went to the wrong building. I thought this was being held up at City Council. And I did think about looking down at the library there at that open green. I thought to myself, well, what if they put the homeless camp right down here in the green, in the open green of the library, And, people I think would have issue with that. That's right, the entrance to the children's library. And, the boats here, those are a lot of people's children. And I think that's where a lot of that concern comes from. Thank you.
Thank you, J.R.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jim Kyle, Vice President of the Working Waterfront Coalition of Whatcom County. I'm here to address the same topic. But first, I'd like to say that we're proud to live in a city that has a heart, a city that is going the extra mile to address the homeless issue. I sincerely feel that way. It's a difficult issue. It doesn't have easy answers, but we're on board with the effort to make something happen. But we have a big problem with the current proposal. As a realtor would say, location, location, location. This is not a NIMBY objection. Some alternative sites are in the backyard of the working waterfront as well. But you cannot pick up a sizable boat with a shipyard crane and move it to alternative sites across Rotor onto an urban grid. And in that way, the Rotor C Street site is unique and irreplaceable. So, Commissioners, we have two requests. First, we ask that you retain the port's existing purchase option for this property for the time being. Second, we ask that you join efforts by a united working waterfront community to persuade the city to change course and look harder for alternative sites. And we are happy to participate in that process as much as we can. 2 years, Mr. Fix told us that in the port's view, the marine trades designation for this area is permanent. Now is the time to back that up. The next speaker standing right behind me actually is Matt Harden, who 3 weeks ago was elected president of the Working Waterfront Coalition. Ironically, he is owner and operator of Northwest Diesel Power, which is the largest tenant on the site that the city is claiming it wants to use for the homeless shelter. There's a double irony that, I lost my track here. Oh, second thing is that tomorrow evening, we'll be attending Whatcom Business Alliance's annual Business of the Year awards ceremony banquet dinner. Thanks for the help. Where Matt Harden and Northwest Diesel Power are in the running for Small Business of the Year. Matt's up next. I'll turn it over to him at this point.
Thank you, Jim.
I think as president of the Working Waterfront Coalition, our main
Matt,
objective.
can you say your name for that?
Yeah, Matt Harden, Northwest Diesel Power. I am president of the Working Waterfront Coalition. I've been deeply embedded, I think, in researching and learning a lot about this issue over the last few weeks, and it's a very serious issue. There's no easy solutions to it. And I think as we are addressing you, the Port Commissioners, our main objective is to really impress upon you how unique this property is. It's irreplaceable. We really see this as a disappointment, I guess, in some ways, as we have felt over the last few years an increased enthusiasm for the marine trades and our ability to pursue economic development for Bellingham on the waterfront. I think we as a group feel that economic development in Bellingham, it has the opportunity to grow out of the waterfront redevelopment. And the marine trades are a huge key factor in just a building industry in Bellingham. We have a unique location situated between Canada, Seattle, Vancouver, and we can draw, as Rick Sales said, financial revenue into our economy, which I think is a huge factor in this. And as we lose these properties, if we do, it definitely has a long-term impact on our ability to pursue economic growth that builds from the waterfront and the money we see beginning to be invested in the waterfront through the Harcourt development. And as that trickles over, Tom Aliotti is developing Ebenall's X property at this point. And we just want to impress upon you and ask that you do all in your powers to pursue keeping this within the marine trades. It's not about where the homeless shelter is in general, but it's about not losing our ability to perform a unique and specialized industry in this area that allows boats to be hauled out. It's a very unique property, and we need to pursue that as a community, I think. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matt.
Hello, I'm Todd Schuster. I'm the owner and operator of Gato Verde Adventure Sailing. I'm also a tenant at the cruise terminal, and I'm also on the board of directors of the Working Waterfront Coalition. I agree with everything that Matt and Jim just said. They said it very well. I just want to reiterate that this is a unique property, that there are very few places left where large boats can be hauled out and stored and worked on. I use two of the businesses there regularly and have for over 12 years. They're great businesses. They are all growing dramatically, and it would be a crime to lose that working waterfront real estate. Additionally, I'm very concerned about Harcourt and their ability to sell the real estate that they are now going to have to sell after this development continues. And they have an option not to continue with the development if they don't like what they see going on down here. So I don't want to see the port undermining their other strategies by placing this shelter where it is. So both the redevelopment and the loss of the working waterfront are the two main things that I think are key, and I think that it's critical that the port retain its option to buy that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
George Dyson, 435 West Holly. I'm also on the board of the Working Waterfront Coalition, and I agree with everything that everybody from Brian Pemberton on down has said. I'll make this a little more personal. I came here 28 years ago and bought property at the head of Whatcom Waterway, and I was very naive, and I didn't do any due diligence. I didn't look at the foundations or the contamination or any of that. All I did was go up to City Hall and talk to Bill Geyer, the planning director at that time. He said, well, my business depends on there being a dock here. You got this beautiful dock, but it's not very well maintained. First, I actually came to the port and said, no, the city maintains that dock. And Bill Geyer assured me, oh, that dock is here to stay. It's in our permanent plan. And now I'm getting to the important part. So I took my money, paid all cash for the building, and thought I can move in and start building boats. And it turned out I didn't own the property because the guy who sold it to me had made an agreement that he'd conveniently forgotten about with the guy who owned the bar many years ago, Dick's Tavern. And he had an option to buy the property. Does that sound familiar? So I didn't own the property. And this took about 3 months and 6 lawyers, including our former mayor, to sort this out. And in the end, I got it sorted out. So I've spent these last 28 years coming before you again and again, trying to bring Whatcom Waterway back to life. And I thank you for everything that you've done. I questioned why we vacated the waterway. I questioned a number of things, but it is coming back to life, and that depends on the marine trades. And I've sat here through a decade of Waterfront Futures Group meetings that hashed this all out, and the one thing we finally agreed on was that southeast side was going to go to mixed use, or the northwest side was going to be reserved for marine trade, squeezed in between the waterway and Bellwether. There's nowhere else for those trades to go, and now we are talking about violating that gentleman's agreement. We were going to hear probably that, well, this is a very special thing. Those 28 years I spent in the middle of the homeless community, I understand that problem very well. But that's why you have the option. It's exactly to prevent, there's a complex background to how that trade was made, but to prevent someone coming in and saying, we have a better use for this property. Keep it in the trade zone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
Hello, Commission. My name is Jason Reed. I live in the Leonard Streets neighborhood. I've been working on the waterfront off of Roeder Avenue the last 14 years for a number of outfits. Several years ago, I became co-owners of Pacific Marine Electric with Sean Clark. We're one of the 5 businesses that could be displaced. I was able to use my skilled labor and make a living, and now we're able to give that back to our employees and pay them well so they can have their a solid career in Bellingham and own homes in Bellingham and raise families in Bellingham. I have a great respect for the Lighthouse mission and what they provide to this city. They have an incredibly difficult job. I think their job is much more difficult than my job, but my job becomes very difficult to do when I can't get access to the water or be in a boatyard. I'd say moving forward, I just hope that everything is done to look at all the options and really decide that taking space from a boatyard is the best solution for this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Hello, I'm Amber Olschlager. I'm one of the owners of the landings at Colony Wharf on C Street in the Marine Trades. I'm here today to voice our concerns to the Commission and the Mayor regarding the shelter proposal. We received notice to vacate the property and its tenants that we leased to the Port of Bellingham to the city for this proposal. First and foremost, the landings at Colony Wharf is in favor of finding a solution to homelessness in our community. However, displacing successful vital businesses in the marine trades area is not the solution. We met with the city on February 21st, and at that point had not received any notice of the proposal shelter from them as a nearby business whose operations will be highly affected by its existence. The day following this meeting, we received a letter stating that they would be taking the property and the tenants as of April 1st. The landings at Colony Wharf opposes the proposal for the following reasons. The businesses that would be displaced are water-dependent marine trades jobs. Displacing them could be detrimental to their existence in the marine trades area. Putting a homeless shelter next to an operating boatyard marine trades area is cause for more problems. We currently deal with vandalism and theft from transients and feel that a shelter existing adjacent to our property could cause more of that and crime. The city taking management of our tenants has already financially impacted our business, and the proposed shelter will cause further financial burden. It will possibly deter customers from wanting to store their vessels at our location, also making it a deterrent for them to want to walk from our facility back to the marina. It doesn't make sense to put a homeless shelter on waterfront land, especially located within the marine trades. It does not revitalize our downtown, nor do we feel it assists in the newly renovated and upcoming success of the waterfront district redevelopment. We are aware the city has faced obstacles over the past year, attempting to find a location. We believe that there are other sites that would be suitable for this proposal and not impact the marine trades waterfront. We will continue to oppose this proposal, and for the city to spring this on us and expect us to be silent is unacceptable. It is irresponsible because of the city's lack of due diligence and feel they are misguided for tying up the industrial marine trades waterfront property. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Commissioners, Madam Mayor, my name's Jeremy Brown. I'm a commercial fisherman. And we've talked, well, first off, I think everybody in this room is going to agree that homelessness is a real issue, and the city's doing a great job stepping up to address it rather than trying to wish it would go away, and we really support that. But as previous speakers have said, this is not the right place. And as a fisherman, I'd like to touch on that a little bit more, because if we go back 20 years, we had the same sort of problem where our marine infrastructure, marine trades infrastructure was kind of getting run down. It was clearly not a priority for the port. And so as a fisherman, I was taking my business to Port Townsend in Seattle, and it added up. And in the meantime, the port is committed to revitalizing the working waterfront, and we've seen a huge improvement in the resources, in the trades that are available. And so for the last 12 years, as I'm doing this afternoon, as you can see, I'm still dressed for it, my boat's hauled out down at C Street. I'm getting ready for the season. But if those trades start to unravel again, if those jobs go away, those skills diminish in the community, I and many other fishermen will be forced with taking our work somewhere else again. And that will further undermine the profitability and the waterfront economy. So I'd urge you for the port to stay the course and support the marine trades and all of the skills that we do have in this community, and the city to do the great job that they're doing in trying to address and step up to the challenge of, modern society, but not on our waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
I'm Steve Walker, Executive Director of the Community Boating Center, and I just wanted to add my voice to the chorus here. I really salute the city for not sitting on their hands and trying. They're setting about to try to address a really chronic problem, and shelter is needed. I personally spent a night in a shelter about 40 years ago, and I know what those kind of facilities can do for people that are down on their luck, and we need it. We need that kind of facility. This is just not the right place for it, and we shouldn't undermine the economic future of the waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
My name is Doug Carlberg. I'm with the Whatcom Commercial Fishermen's Association. And I think the first thing that I'd like to say is that the homeless are people. And I think everybody in this room understands that. So the criticism we may have on this particular site has nothing to do with the fact that the homeless have made their home on Bellingham's waterfront for a long time. And the waterfront has never come before City Council or the port and asked them to move. And that's not what's at stake here today. We did an economic study. 6% of all the jobs in Whatcom County are maritime related. That piece of land, if it goes away, they go away. You have to have that land for that business. And the Port of Bellingham controls that land, not the city of Bellingham, the Port of Bellingham. That's why we're in this room today. You have an option on that land. Now, in the meantime, we call this an easy access shelter. That's a really bad euphemism, and I wish people wouldn't use it, because if you want to say, hey, this has real impacts, we're going to get theft, we're going to get drug use. These are the people that cannot get into the Lighthouse mission. And whether we like it or not, those people have real impacts on their neighbors. And it's not impacts that any of us want in our neighborhoods. And we're willing to have that down here. This discussion isn't about sending the Lighthouse mission away. This discussion is about protecting the marine trades and finding an appropriate home for these homeless folks. We're behind finding an appropriate home for the homeless folks. Now, the city forgot to mention in the Herald article that they own a piece of land right across the street that's been vacant for 17 years. And I really wish they had mentioned that. That would make a fine home. It's been vacant for 17 years. It's not on the tax rolls. And to put people out of work and take property off the tax rolls to provide for the homeless on a piece of land that's rare on Bellingham's waterfront, I think could use some rethinking. With all due respect, where'd the mayor go? Okay. But there's also a couple other things that are really important for the port. The biggest gamble in Whatcom County's history economically for the taxpayers of Whatcom County and the city of Bellingham is this new waterfront. It started out as a dream, and I think the port's $70 million into it with state monies, federal monies, local monies. I mean, money's coming from everywhere, and they planned on getting that money back. Well, that plan has been a little slow to take effect, but it is finally taking effect. And they're going to start 600 feet away from the front door of this homeless shelter with a sidewalk that goes to the front of the homeless shelter, doesn't cross a major road. In fact, the promenade's already there for the homeless to be able to walk to that piece of property. It's a little backwards to think we're not going to put this in a residential area, but we're going to put it in an area and build a residential area around it. This is a big gamble these folks have taken. And I think we got to be really careful about protecting that investment. This is a pretty negative thing to have in your neighborhood. Not bad people, human beings, but it comes with really a lot of negative issues. You go up to that park, there's needles in all the bushes. The working waterfront is particularly vulnerable to it because the way they make their money to get their next fix after they've had a nice night's sleep in the new homeless shelter is they steal scrap metal, particularly the semi-precious metals, which are used on fishing boats and all these other boats, and they take them over to the scrap yard, which is right behind them, and they turn it into cash. And I think that really what we're asking is that we protect these good customers and good industries. We don't impact those people, and we take care of the homeless too. Now, the city of Bellingham.
Your 3 minutes are up. Did you
Okay,
hear the bell?
one last suggestion. The city of Bellingham has the ability to eminent domain any piece of property that's down there and put this exactly where they think it belongs. And I think they should use it. That's how much we care about the homeless.
Thank you, Doug.
Hi, everybody. My name is Milan Slipčević, President of Commercial Fishermen Association of Whatcom County. I like to mention to everybody, in last decade, we put a lot of effort to change the mind of our community that recognize our trade, commercial fishing industry and marine trade businesses in this community. We always think we have one of the best mayors that can understand. Our mayor is just best qualified person that I know to take that position to lead our commercial fishing industry and marine industry. I'm pretty sure and I believe that our Mayor Kelly Linville is going to stay with us and make wise decision and find the best solution how to help commercial fishermen, marine trade businesses, and homeless people, but not hurt our trade, marine trade businesses. Please don't do that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Milan.
Roger Sheldrup, and I'm the owner of Top to Bottom Marine Service. I lease from the port an office. I lease a moored spot for a large boathouse, and I lease 80 feet of dock right behind our shop, which is at Gate 8. Every single company here has either hired us or we've hired them. Diesel Power, which is in the building you guys, in the lot that you guys are talking about. Pacific Marine Electric. There's HAL, Thiessen Incorporated in the back. Those businesses are used by our company very often, and vice versa. They call us for services. Our company provides a much-needed diving and underwater services in the harbor, and I feel like the city is taking that land from us too. That would encourage me to come up here and talk. One other thing I wanted to just say that was on my mind is I was just reading this. I don't make it to these meetings and stuff because I just don't have time to come to them. But I may be reading it wrong, but the city has allocated $750,000, not to build a park, to design a park. 1 acre, it says here in this thing, but it might mean all the 33 acres, but on this thing, it makes it look like it's 1 acre to allocate $750,000. This piece of property isn't going to cost the city anything just to leave it the way it is. In fact, it doesn't need to be, it could be upgraded, but it doesn't need to be upgraded because it's perfect for the businesses that are in there. If they didn't change it, it's going to do nothing but cost money, and it's going to cost more money than you ever thought it was going to cost. And we could sit here and talk forever, but the thing I want to say is that you can't put non-productive entity somewhere where it's very productive. And it's not just us working there. We're providing not just jobs, we're providing jobs that people can buy homes. And I've got 5 employees, and 3 of them have bought homes working for me. And Phil Reese at Seaview told me once, when I was talking to him, he goes, you know you got a successful business when your employees are buying homes. Now, those companies that are there are paying good wages, not $10 an hour, not $15 an hour. Some are making $35 an hour and plus. What were you thinking if you're going to move that out of there and put a cost event in there, a major cost event, not only a direct cost, but all the other stuff that's going to happen that you haven't thought about yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
I went the wrong way. It looks like there's nobody in line. But completely unprepared and undoubtedly won't be eloquent, but my name's Alan Shaw, Solus Group. I'm a small boat builder. So I use the services that will be displaced and many others in Century Wharf from time to time. But I don't think there's anybody here in this room that really does not want to find a solution for the homeless. So it's almost not on the agenda. And it's wonderful that that's going on. But there's one thread that doesn't appear to be addressed. And I think the marine trades and the marine economy in particular, there's a great economic engine that is underway in Bellingham. And we don't have a lot of them. And it's something that could be fostered and looked after and encouraged and even given breaks to promote. The potential for, I think it's huge. I mean, if bigger boats, Seattle's a zoo right now. If you're a large boat owner and you can come here and get support, you're going to drop $100,000 every single day you're here and not even notice it. If we can have customers like that here, everybody benefits. The city should be very, very motivated to support marine trades, to support a working waterfront. And it should also be a focus when they come to thinking about what they're going to do with our 500-acre parking lot across the canal there. You know, there's so much potential. And this is very much a poor decision, I believe, if they were going to displace these businesses and make it more difficult to keep it secure as a marine trade. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Good afternoon. Doug Thomas, 2825 Rotor. I'm President and CEO of Bellingham Cold Storage just down the street. I want to remind the commissioners that our 50-year lease with the Port of Bellingham contains a provision and/or conditions that we adhere to marine-related activities on site. I think mutually agreed upon way back in 1990 that was a good move and a good use of that property. We also are partners and half owners of the Harbor Marine fueling station there, right on the southeast corner of our waterfront property. And that carries with it in the master lease a provision whereby we are required to maintain a fuel station in the Bellingham Harbor so long as there is no other fuel station in Bellingham Harbor. And trust me, it's not a huge moneymaker. We'd love to change that thing over to a high-rise condo. We'd make a lot more money and whatnot. It's just that it's not the appropriate location. And in this case, I think everyone wants to address the homeless situation. I've met with Mayor Linville and Rick and Tara. My wife has suggested a program that is existing in Seattle with the Millionaires Club, a similar organization as the Lighthouse Mission, whereby we equip these folks with a triage process of assessing their needs, their medical, mental, dental, whatever it be, and then assess whether or not they're capable of working, because a large portion of these folks with a little bit of help can come to work. We have about 1,200 year-round jobs at our 2 facilities. About 800 of those exist at the waterfront facility. And in the summertime, to accommodate fishermen and fish processing and berry processing and various food processing activities, we struggle mightily to hire elementary school educated people that can pass a basic math test and remain drug-free to fill jobs that quickly, within 500 hours, are well over $15 an hour and have full medical, dental, optical, and everything else. And I think President Reagan once said, the best social program is a job. And let's get these folks some help, some skill sets, and assess those that need help that can't maybe otherwise, at least initially, work. But let's get some of them some jobs so that we can help them pull themselves out of this situation rather than continuing to give them things without the expectation that they might make their way out of this situation themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Is there anyone else there's a few people that have signed up that haven't spoken? Do you want to speak?
Mike Alsop, 2247 North Shore Road. And I'm a lifelong Bellingburger and boater throughout my whole life. And I really think this is a poor decision. I'm also a landowner of 20 plus acres of industrial property in in Bellingham proper, and I've seen some of the issues that and felt the issues that I think these people will have if this location is used for what the mayor's thinking about. The one thing I have a thought, and it's a question, and basically it's a question, is if you build this and it's a great facility, it will be oversubscribed the first day. And my question really is to Bellingham, what do you do for the next 200 and the next 200 and the next 200? Because this is just not a solution, but it's a quick fix. And so I think really we need to look for a solution. And I really, really think that this is a poor solution by location. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Hi, I'm Jamie Fody, and my husband and I own West Coast Marine Services, and we've been located on the corner of C and Roeder for the last 31 years. We also rent or lease property, rather, from the landings at Colony Wharf in the area that will be directly impacted. We will be displaced by this maneuver, which I have to really question the logic of displacing viable wage providing employment, tax base in the marine trades, which has no other place to go. If you displace them from this area, they are gone. There is no place else. They can't move out to Bakerview and operate out of a landlocked area. These businesses need to be in this location. That's why they're here. I have to really question the logic of why you would want to displace tax-based and wage-earning jobs in lieu of providing a shelter which will only cost us money. And believe me, we have been impacted many times over the 31 years that we've been in our location by the homeless. I don't have anything personal against the homeless, trust me. I really, really wish we could all find a much easier solution to the problem. But this is not the way to go about it. This is not the place for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Hi, I'm Mike Russ, Tri-County Diesel Marine, 2696 Roeder. I agree, everybody in this room, we all have a heart for the homeless and for those that are less fortunate than us. I would like to say that you've got a room full of problem solvers right here. Very unique group of people. And in problem solving, the first thing we do is we identify the problem, which I think the city has done a good job of. We list possible solutions to the problem. And with some of those solutions, the thing that comes to mind for me, firstly, is that homeless people have feet and they are mobile. We see them moving throughout the city pretty easily. When you get a boat out of the water, especially a large vessel out of the water, obviously we can't move it around. We're kind of stuck with where we're at. We have a lot of customers that come from the southern part of the state, out of Canada, and it's, again, very, very unique location. They can get a lot of stuff done here. The tradesmen in this small area are pretty incredible. And I'd just like you to really reconsider what you're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
Hello, my name's Tom Aliotti. I live at 207 Friday Creek in Bellingham, and I just recently purchased this property, the old New West Fisheries site. And I'm just, my whole problem is just lack of consultation with all these people and finding a solution for this situation. And I wish that there was more information given to me when I was, 60 days, 90 days ago, I closed on this piece of property, and then this information comes out. And just puts me in a really tough situation financially, and I'm signing up to put a lot of money into this project, and it's pretty tough, right, for me to digest all this, and I hope that you guys can find another solution. That's about it.
Tom, could you go back to the podium for just a second? I have just a clarification. How long ago did you buy the property again?
I closed on the first of the year.
In
And I was
January?
unaware, I had 6 months feasibility time where I did ample amount of research with finding all the issues related to this property.
And when was the first time you heard about this?
It's, I guess, the date that these tenants got notified to be evicted, which I'm not sure that date. Does anybody?
Thank you for the clarification, Tom. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? There's a few more signed up. Rick? Don't mean to talk you into it, or
My name's Tim, and I've got a business down there too on C Street.
your name is what, I'm sorry?
Tim Pitch.
Tim Pitch, thank you.
It's pretty much been said, and I just think also think it's a bad location, and if there's any other place it could be relocated to for this, I think it'd be a good idea. Since I've been down there, I've noticed, stuff going on that's, I've had stuff disappear, and some of the vessels that I've work on, they're sitting out. I mean, the security's good down there, and it's gotten better. But obviously, if a thief wants to get in somewhere, he's going to get in. So I just think that location is important. So if there's any other place that could be taken under consideration, I think that'd be wise.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else?
Paul Burrell, I'm a local commercial fisherman, co-owner of Sound Pacific Seafoods, and a volunteer on the Marine Advisory Committee. One point I haven't heard come up is there, an alternative for this? And if so, why is the city deciding to take this piece of property away? Like Mike said, with Tri-County Diesel, we have a bunch of problem solvers in this room. Is it financially not a good decision what the city is currently doing, letting the port lease it out? Can we change that? Or, if there is a good alternative for the homeless shelter, why is that not being used? Is there some way that as Brian said, can the mayor go back up on the hill with Executive Director Fix and talk about it? Can we renegotiate so it is financially reasonable for the city to keep it here? Because I do not believe it's the best spot for a homeless shelter. That's definitely, I'll echo everybody with that. But if we could somehow maybe go back to the table, talk to the city, make it financially reasonable for them to keep that piece of property available for our main trades. That's all.
Thank you, Paul. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to the issue? There's Wes, Don, Sherry. I don't mean to slight you if you're here and want to speak. No? Okay. Is there anyone that didn't sign up that wants to address the issue? Okay, very good. Then we'll move on from our public comment period, and we'll give the floor to the mayor.
I think she gets 6 minutes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for giving me, I'm Kelly Linville. What is my address? 3123 Eldridge Avenue. I really appreciate you giving me the time to come here and talk about the need we have in our community. I also want to say, and this might sound silly to some people, there's not one person in this room I disagree with on the importance of the marine trades industry. As Sippo knows, you know, I was raised in a fishing family. My dad owned CK Fish Company in Blaine. And just last year, we awarded the Working Waterfront Coalition money to put on the first sea feast in the city of Bellingham because we want to promote marine trades in Bellingham. And when we were negotiating the agreement on the waterfront, the city was, through myself and others, was very clear that one of the reasons we wanted to make the swap that we made with the land was because we believed that the port would be a better manager of that maritime property. That wasn't our strength, and so we're very supportive. So I know that there's been some questions about, well, I thought you were my friend, but now I don't think you're my friend anymore. And I just want you to know that I'm still your friend. I want to make it clear that we have not evicted the tenants from our property. There is a long ways to go before this could even become a reality, and I'll go into a few details. We have not asked our tenants to leave because we value them. And in fact, one of the reasons that we gave Colony Wharf notice was because Colony Wharf was charging 10 times as much to the people that are leasing that property. They were paying $5,000 a month. The city was getting $500 a month. We are going to pass that savings on to the clients that live on our property or that work on our property. We value them, and we don't believe that they were getting a good deal. And that's another reason why we swapped with the port, is because then the port could deal with the land management issues and the city wasn't going to do that. So I believe that our tenants, the three things we asked is, first of all, that we would work with Rob, and Rob has been quite, we go to the Mount often, at least once a month, and he's been very good at talking to us about the value we place on our tenants there and how we can find another place for them to be if there is something available on the waterfront, because we do not want them to go away. And we also wanted to let them know what the plans were. We didn't want them to be surprised because they would be directly affected. And we wanted them to know that we were going to save them quite a bit of money on their rent every month so that they'd have an opportunity to plan in the next 18 to 24 months if there was going to be a move, because this isn't going to be something quick. Our relationship with the Lighthouse Mission is actually a very good one for this. Tara and I were just at their fundraiser where they were raising money, and they did testimonials. And the reason that we want to partner with them is because one of their success stories was one of their residents who went through their program and just got hired by WTA. our county bus service. That is their goal. Their goal is to break people out of poverty, have them deal with their addiction issues, give them the job training they need so they can go on and not have to be in a shelter situation. This is not going to be a tent city if it comes to fruition, because we don't think that services can be applied if it is. So the good news about this partnership is the Lighthouse Mission is taking on all the capital costs and the majority of the operating costs for the shelter. The city is going to pay for nighttime shelter costs, and we would be leasing the property to the Lighthouse Mission, because there might be a time, hopefully, when we don't need a shelter down there, and then that 1 acre out of the 240 acres that we're talking about could go back to the purpose by which we all thought we were gonna use it for. The port's been very good at helping us try to find another location. We looked in private industrial park land. As soon as they found out it was a shelter, they would not lease or sell to us. We went out and looked at a great building out at the airport that was the Air National Guard building. We took the Lighthouse Mission with us. They thought it would be a great place because it was already almost equipped. FFA said, no, you can't have a shelter that close to the runway. We went and looked at the Bellingham building, and I know that's one of the other options that we had talked about. The location from the Lighthouse Mission and the amount of work that would be needed inside that building ended up making that not a good choice. And also it was much closer to the hardcourt development that's on the south side of the waterway, where we're going to get the residential development, the commercial development, et cetera. So that didn't end up being viable either. If there is, all you problem solvers in the room can find another location for us that the Lighthouse Mission will run and build, we would be happy. We would be happy. Well,
Excuse me.
knock, knock, knock.
Please.
Order, please.
Please respect the speaker. We respected all the folks who were speaking. Please do the same courtesy for her.
That's okay. I'm used to it. I'm kind of the bearer of bad news at this meeting, and I know that. We are always willing to, if there's another option. We have worked 18 months with the Lighthouse Mission. Before that, we worked an additional 3.5 years to work with the provider community so that they would accept the fact that transitional housing, getting people off the streets, getting people supervised, getting people services, was better than waiting to build another Francis Place like we did downtown. That is not, we can't wait 3 years to get people off the street. So that's why we wanted something that was transitional in nature, where people then could move on to the next step. And then the other thing about it is we listened very hard when people in our community, downtown especially, said, we don't want to have everything concentrated in the downtown area where the services are. And so once Francis Place became a reality, we did not allow another phase of that at the end of that parking lot, and we've given an incentive for people to move outside of the city core and build those supported facilities in other places around town where there's services. I think there was a gentleman, was it you? Somebody, I clapped for one of you guys. There was a gentleman who was talking about, did we look at other options, or are we concentrating, the services in one place? And we're trying very hard not to do that. This is a unique situation, though, because this is something that hopefully people will move out of. Some of those supported facilities, people are going to be there maybe until they pass on. So they're permanent. This is for people that are moving through. We'll be happy to talk to anybody, because the Lighthouse Mission is going to be raising money for at least 18 months. They have to raise $1.5 million for the capital costs, and then they have to raise money for their portion of the operating costs. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight. And I want you to know that we're kind of at our wits' end, because we have worked with the port to find another location. We know that no matter where we say we want to put it, it's going to be a problem. If we put it in a residential area, which is what happens at 600 West Holly, we'll get the same, we'll get the same concerns, which is why we look for light industrial. And I agree with all the concerns that you have. I do. I understand. I've been dealing with this for 5 years now, and it is not easy. I really, really, really appreciate you all acknowledging that this is a bad problem and that we need to do something about it, because we do. It is a bad problem, and we do need to do something about it. And I thank you for caring that there are people in our community that need our help. So then we're down to, so what do we do? The city owns this piece of property because of our land swap, and we're not going to get into all the details of that. The port hasn't been interested in buying it because we negotiated a really good price when we got to our agreement to kind of even out the rest of the land swap that we made. What I'm here to ask the port today to do is to relinquish their first right of buying this property so we can move forward. And I know that I've heard from the port with some concerns or some things they wonder if the city would do. And I want to go through that list of things right now, if that's okay with the commissioners. The first thing is the security. We understand that right now, security is an issue with port tenants, with businesses in the area. We already know that. We have hired 19 new police officers, and some of them are dedicated to downtown. They can't be everywhere. If anybody doesn't have a no trespass order on their own private property, please get that from the police department, because that allows the police officers not to have to contact you if there's somebody on the property that they see. So we are willing to look at, we're going to fence the whole, if this thing comes to be, we're going to fence around the whole property. The only access will be off-roader, so there won't be people coming out from any other part of the property. And we'd be willing to work with the port on other fencing issues or security issues that would help with the patrol or the fencing. So that is, we understand this is an impact. We're willing to work with you on that. The Chestnut Street vacation, we need part of that because of utilities and right-of-way. We don't need all of it. So we could donate that, give that to the port, and only keep what we absolutely would need for staff parking and for utilities. So we don't need the whole vacation. And then also the option, if this doesn't work out, or if we actually solve the problem a different way, or if we find a different location later on, then we would be willing to give the port back the option to purchase the property. It was a fluke kind of that we still have it, but it's a fluke that we have to deal with now. So, but the only two things we'd ask is we'd have to rewrite the agreement, the purchase agreement, and because right now we can't even lease that property long-term. Right now, we're happy to have the tenants on there that are there, and if there's a shelter, then we hope by then, the next 18 to 24 months, that we've been able to work with the port on relocating them either to the part of the tissue warehouse or to the business center that's down by the harbor, or to someplace else on the property. So we care about our tenants. Other than that, I'm open to any questions that you guys might have.
Well, thank you.
About anything.
Thank you, Mayor Linville. Did any of your staff want to speak?
I think that they could, if you had technical questions and stuff, I haven't been in the day-to-day negotiations with the Lighthouse Mission, so they could answer some of those questions. But pretty much the board of the Lighthouse Mission board passed our, our letter of intent. So they've made a commitment to start raising money, but they have to see if they can raise the money. They haven't raised the money yet.
Mayor, what would you do if you didn't have this property? What avenue would you be looking at today?
I don't know what we do because we believe that we've looked at every piece of viable property that is with close to our partner. That's part of the problem. If it was just us, maybe we could put it somewhere else, but we can't afford to build and run a shelter. We don't have the expertise to do that. We don't want to be in that business. Our interest is public health and safety. That's our priority. So that's why we're willing to look at the security issues, et cetera. So right now, we have, leave it like it is and have the populations dispersed all over the city, or create this shelter and try to contain people that are unhoused and treat them with respect and try to get them off the roller coaster. I think Doug and his wife had a very good idea. And the Lighthouse Mission's doing some of that. I don't know if you guys have talked to them, but. Nobody called you back? Well, we'll grab Hans, because they're actually, some of the things you're talking about, they're actually doing.
Yeah, nobody from Hans or the city has called me back, and I was assured
We can't hear this on the microphone. If you could go to the podium.
We got a mic.
We have a mic
Hang on.
around somewhere?
Or you can come up.
Mic's right there.
No, here we go. Well, okay.
Whatever.
I
Thank
don't
you.
care. She can come
I'll
up.
just be quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Change my name then.
We just can't hear you on the video if.
That's okay,
you're
I'm
not-
sorry.
Thank you.
I'm Sandy Thomas, and I'm the one that kind of came to you, Mayor, on a number of occasions with a couple of programs, the Millionaire Club and Jobs Connect. That's where I see our city needing to go. Housing, secondary. Okay, get them where they're at, meet them where they're at, get them working. We can sort out who needs the mental health issue, help, who needs the drug addiction, help. Those, and there's a lot of them out there that are capable of working, get them jobs, secondarily, find housing. Okay, I came to you on many occasions, finally got time with Rick Seppler and Hans, met with them. They were very excited about what I had to say. Handed it to them on a silver platter, and nobody ever called me back. Sits in my file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, I remember you talking to me. And the reason that we wanted to pass that on to Hans is that we're not going to provide those services. So we'll follow up with Hans too, because we are not going to be the ones that do a Millionaires Club or the job training. That's something that other people do. So I'm sorry that we dropped the ball, and we'll follow up with the Lighthouse Mission because they're going to be looking for support. And I know part of the Millionaires Club is a way to contribute to the services, correct?
It's actually funded through United Way
Okay.
to Jobs Connect, so there's no financial impact on the city or businesses or people in the community, because all they need to do is designate that money to Jobs Connect.
Okay, so that it gets designated. Yeah, we're just not going to manage a new program. We can't afford, we don't have the expertise or the staff to do that. But if United Way has a program ready to go, I was just talking to Peter Tyson yesterday, and he mentioned that population is one that they're looking for extra programs for. So, thank you. So anyway, so we don't have an option. We have it kind of, it's leave it how it is, because the drop-in center on Holly Street is temporary and it's overloaded, and that's why you see people spilling out. I think the fire marshal's going to go check them out because they think there's too many people that are there. So there's that temporary solution. And then we've worked very hard with the not-for-profit community, with the faith-based community, to find shelter for these people. We can say housing second, but the providers in our community say housing's first. So I'm just saying it's taken 5 years to get them to understand that we can't wait to build permanent housing for everybody. It's too expensive, and we need to intervene before that, So I don't know what my options are, but I'll go to the Mount with Rob. I'll listen to any of the ideas that you have that are viable. I'll talk to the commissioners some more. We just have to do something. It's been a long time. And the problem's not getting better.
Thank you for being,
There's a drug question here.
if we're going to take questions, we need the mic if possible.
Okay, Maya, come up here.
I just wanted to ask if there was going to be drugs or alcohol allowed on the
No.
premises at all?
No,
None?
no.
Okay, so then they're just like the Lighthouse Mission because they won't allow that in their facility as well. We have druggies and drunk people and just criminals all over our properties, and we have no way of dealing with them because we do trespass them, the police come, the police have told us they're actually afraid of some of them because they're violent.
Yeah.
And
Well, the one thing that the police have is they need an option of a place to put people. We are looking for an option for them to put people so they can go and
Yeah,
take them off
yeah.
your property and have a place to put them instead of just passing them on to another business or another neighbor. And that's one of the goals of this, is to have a place so people can go, so the police can be more aggressive. But the other thing is, people can be drunk, they can be mentally ill, they can be high, they can't use on the premises, and if they do, they're
Right.
they're evicted.
Okay, I mean, prepared to, if there's a brawl, and the police have to come break it up, and they, okay, never mind, that's all I had to say.
That's
Kelly,
okay.
we've had a discussion from the public, and now it's mayor's presentation. And if there's any questions from any of the commissioners or comments?
I do have a couple comments.
I have a question.
I started something, I'm sorry.
I don't think it's going to be helpful to turn this into a debate between the mayor and everyone individually in the room. I appreciate the comments, but we did have public testimony, so now I think it's time for the commissioners and the mayor to have a discussion.
Tell me?
No, I just,
We gave everyone a chance to speak, so.
Okay, so anyway, I am open to suggestions if somebody has something, but the issue right now is if we want to move people off the street and if we want to connect them to services, they need someplace to be.
Commissioner Briscoe?
I want to make something very clear from my point of view. People talk about this piece of property because it's only 1 acre that makes it significantly less valuable to the marine trades, and that's not true. One of the things it does to the port, and I don't consider our port a large port. Some people do, but I do not. Grounds-wise, I don't consider us a large port. We don't have very much ground to bring new businesses into and move on and so forth. We just, in this development, gave away a lot of ground. Okay, that maybe or maybe not, but people made that decision, that's irrelevant. But this acre, or acre and a quarter, whatever it is going to have to be replaced by the port, which means we have to go to some of our other property that may be available to put these people on. And what that does is it decreases our availability to bring new businesses to town and locate them on ground. So you take that ground away, we have to find something to try and keep those people on the waterfront. We lose the other ground we would have had to put new businesses on. So it's kind of to me, it's a double duty. And I'm not about giving up port property, period. I don't think that's a good idea. I am about helping the homeless folks, however. I believe that, the Bible says, help thy neighbor. And I believe that we can find a better solution. And Mayor Kelly, I sat across from you in your office and I talked to you about that. And I firmly believe we can find a better solution to the problem than we have on the table right now. I am not about putting a shelter there. I will never be about putting a shelter there. I think we need to find a solution, and you can always find a solution to a problem if both sides are willing to work hard enough together to get there. It may not be palatable to both sides, but we can find something that's palatable to both sides of an equal amount.
And we have 3 partners, and that's the partner that's been missing from this conversation that I've had with the port, is the partner that is taking on the majority of the financial risk hasn't been at the table with all of us. And I think that partner needs to be there too, because they are taking on the biggest burden of operation and expense. And we appreciate that because we can't do it all. And I do think it's important, Bobby, for marine trades. I have to put 2 hats on. I have to put my my social service hat on, and I have to put my economic development hat on. And it's very frustrating for Tara, because she not only is the lead on community development, so she's the lead on the shelter, she also works for me in an economic development director mode. So this has been difficult for all of us, and I do understand. I really do. And I'm not just saying that.
And I sympathize with your position, but I think we can find a better solution than the one we have at hand.
Well, I would like you to put your thinking caps on. I'd like you to put your thinking caps on now, because we have an 18 to 24-month time frame, and if the Lighthouse Mission is going to start raising money, they need to know that they have a location. So you'll need to get back to me on the first question I asked you, and then if you have any ideas that would work for all three of us, I'm open. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, Kelly.
We're not quite done.
Oh, man,
There's two other commissioners.
There's
that would
only,
like to
there's
come.
only,
Tough guys now. I was the easy guy.
there's only three of us.
You were the
so-
easy guy, really?
So the question was raised, and I'm sure you're going to have to give this presentation, or you maybe already have, probably through the Downtown Bellingham Partnership, or at least the business owners might gather in downtown. And I'm quite certain they would have a different opinion than the folks in this room. So I encourage people in this room to get together at that meeting. Have you had that meeting yet?
No, it's scheduled for when? Tomorrow.
So I would encourage folks in here to hear from the downtown business owners to see what they're going through as well. So maybe there can be some common ground that's found in this conversation. One of the questions that's come up quite often is, why not the Sash and Door site? Can you answer that for folks that are here?
Well, we have a plan for Old Town, and it includes residential on that site. And we have found, especially when we looked at the St. Francis site, that if you try to put something in a neighborhood, you get as much or more resistance to it.
And the St. Francis site, that's the new building that Catholic Community
Yeah.
Services has on Cornwall.
Yes.
Right behind Boundary Bay, for those folks who don't know where that's at. So you know this, and I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, because there's a whole lot of other conversations that have to happen. So, but we've spent millions on the marine trades down here. It's been addressed. Some folks here noticed. Thank you very much for noticing. And losing an acre of ground here is pretty important to not just the businesses here, but also to the port. Bobby brought up the point of, if we can certainly find another acre and a quarter somewhere, but in essence, it takes, that acre out of production for even more businesses. So that's a concern that I'm hoping that we can work through and find a good solution for as we go forward. A question that I've got is that the port has an option to buy this property, and I know the city owns it, and that's a plus in the column of keeping the costs down. And I understand that you probably just don't want to go out and buy another piece of property, because then you got to find the money to buy that property. Have you thought about floating a revenue bond against the revenues on this property to go buy something somewhere else?
We have so many unmet capital needs that we have other priorities that we are not meeting right now. So if we were going to do that, it would have to be part of a bigger bond. We're being very careful, because we have several initiatives that are coming forward. We're looking at how we can consolidate and reduce some of the other taxes and fees that the city residents are paying. So just going out for more taxes is not something we're looking at doing now. Our home levy's coming forward again. We want to go back out for that, because it's been very successful. We'll change it. It won't be like it is now, so maybe it could be used on something like this. But we are not going to go out for a separate bond for this. We'd have to do more. Rick's leading an effort on the sustainability of the funding and programming for the city, and so this is part of our discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess to be clear to folks who don't quite understand, so if you went out to the bond market against this piece of property, that would raise the money to go buy and possibly program something else, because there is revenue that's returned off of this particular bit of property. It would pay would pay the bond off, so it wouldn't be an additional cost to the taxpayers.
Well, and we're not planning on raising the rents on our tenants. We're planning on lowering them to what we were receiving.
Which wouldn't pay for a revenue bond. Yeah, gotcha, okay. That's it, I think. I've got a few more questions, but I think you probably have heard them from Rob already, so.
Well, I don't know, he's not you. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, you wish you were, but.
Did you, Commissioner, have any other questions, comments?
I'm still thinking. Go ahead.
Mayor, could you talk about the difference between a low barrier and a regular shelter? Rick, I was at a safety meeting for the city where Rick explained it, and I think it's important that we know what that is.
Well, I'll explain it how I know it, and if, Rick, you think I've done it wrong, then you can correct me. The idea of shelters is something that we looked around at a long time, and it had to do with tent cities or, that kind of thing, or temporary things where you'd come and you'd go, not necessarily maybe 24 hours, not hooked up to services. And that's what's different about this particular facility is it's not a tent city, it's not a Taj Mahal. It's very low key. There are going to be cots on the floor at night. I mean, that's what it's going to be like. But it's 24 hours, and it's also connects people with services. So that's the difference I see. Rick, what did you say? You have to come to the microphone. You want to give him no?
I could.
That's okay.
I'm Rick Sepler. I'm the Planning and Community Development Director, and glad you attended that talk. The difference with low barrier or an easy access shelter is that it's dealing with the hardest to house folks. These are the folks that, couples who don't want to be separated, folks whose last vestige of their former lives are their pets and they want to take their pets with them, folks that have their stuff they've got to take around. And in the shelter, if folks can meet basic safety rules, they're accepted. So there's no testing for drugs or alcohol, but if you could follow the basic rules, you're allowed to stay. And the rules are fairly simple, and they're monitored. If folks can't follow the rules, they're barred from the shelter. I mean, basically, there's a way they can come back in through a committee called the Barring Committee who reviews that. But it is the hardest folks for us to serve. There are about 750 people every night who are on shelter. And of those folks, a lot of them get caught in the really good safety net that the city has established through the work of voting and supporting the Home Levy Housing Fund. We've been able to catch about half those folks, but another half are still on the streets. And to be honest, when we find them in doorways where they see them camping, we need to move those folks on. That's not a place for them to be. We haven't had a place we could send them.
There were two things that really hit home with me when I attended that meeting. One was in the mission, you can't go in if you're intoxicated or show heavy drugs in your system at the time. And in this shelter, they can go in if they're intoxicated, and if they're on drugs, they just can't bring it in with them.
If they follow the basic rules. If they're disruptive, if they're violent, they're out.
Okay. The second thing you pointed out that was a little concerning to me was that this shelter is only going to take care of half the problem, and I'm concerned with what Mr. Alsop said, that this is just the start. If it's only going to get half the people out of the doorways in the downtown businesses and half the people off panhandling on the freeway, what are we going to do with the other half?
Well, this is based on experiences with similar shelters in other cities. We learn from those experiences. When offered with the choice of moving on, that we can get you a ride to the shelter and help you access services, to be fair, half the folks won't take that ride. They'll move somewhere else. But eventually they're moved on enough that some of them do break down and take the services and come through, and that's a breakthrough. because when they're exposed to it, they may go on. There's no one magic bullet. This doesn't replace all of the other things the city is already funding and doing. This supplements it. And I would ask a question, and we can debate the location. The biggest issue here is what happens if we don't do the shelter? You know, we're not going to see a significant change.
Do you think it'll increase the population in this community once we build this shelter? Do you think they'll come from elsewhere?
If I might respond, or you wish to?
I'll go.
Okay, thank you very much.
So it's very interesting. They do a point in time count every year. The Opportunity Council does with a lot of volunteers. And what they found is that there's a 70-30 split. 70% of the people, their last known address is Whatcom County. 30% of the people are new to the community. It's been consistent over 10 years, and it's consistent community to community. So it doesn't necessarily, I mean, what can I say? I can't promise, but the statistics show that you have about that mix in every community, and it doesn't change a lot now. The numbers go up as the population goes up, but the percentages are pretty close. They don't change. That surprised me.
I have to say, I really applaud you, Marylandville, for tackling the homeless problem. I mean, it's a problem in every city. It's a tough tackle, I understand. And I'm not one that says I don't want it in my backyard, speaking on behalf of the port. If it was just across the street or at the Sash and Door site or any of the other sites that could be available near the mission, it would still be in our backyard, and I don't mind that. I don't mind if it's there. I really don't like, I agree with everyone who's spoken today that's opposed to it. I don't like displacing 5 good marine trades businesses. I've talked with all the owners, and I really, all but one, and I sure understand where you're coming from. On the other hand, as a port commissioner, I don't want to buy a $775,000 piece of property and get $500 a month. If my fellow commissioners could guarantee me that we would lease that out on the port's behalf at the market rents, and then I would certainly consider purchasing it. But I don't want to purchase it and lose that kind of money. I can understand where the city had the conversation of we're only making $500 a month on a $750,000 piece of property. Might as well make it into a homeless shelter. I can see where.
Actually, Rob, that wasn't our rationale, but.
I'm Dan. Don't
Dan.
confuse me with Rob. That's okay.
See, you look more alike.
That's
No,
okay.
That wasn't our, that, you know, the money wasn't the cost. We spend millions of dollars on housing and homelessness and services, so that wasn't the point at all. It was basically that we owned that piece of property and we couldn't find another place that was not in residential area.
The option that the port has, the city owns the property, and people have to realize that. The city owns the property. There's something that comes along with ownership of a piece of property, as everyone in this room can relate to. You do own it, but we do have an option to purchase it. And I don't want to take that option off the table, even if it's a homeless shelter, from the standpoint if it doesn't become a homeless shelter, if that's the direction we go, I want it back. And so I don't want to take that option off the table. I've got to agree with Brian Pemberton, the first speaker, who said, this is the best working relationship the city and the port has ever had. And I definitely do not want this issue to jeopardize that. When I met with you privately, you said this is a business decision on both of our parts, and I really respect that and applaud that. I think it's better to keep, if we possibly can, to keep the homeless in a cluster in one area in the city, if we can. You say the Sash and Door site, which you also own, is earmarked for something else. Well, our marine trades is also earmarked for marine trades, and it's already there. So I've got to I've got to agree with Mr. Pemberton, the first speaker, that you and our executive director, I highly respect both of you. If you need other people that you need to meet with, if folks here have an idea, try to put yourself in both of their spots, on both the mayor and our executive director. What would you do? See if you can find that piece of property, because I've looked around. I would love to be able to work with the Parberries. I wish someone from Parberry, is anyone from Parberries here? I certainly wish they were, because it just makes sense. There's so many locations around there. I know, speaking on behalf of this commissioner, we could find storage areas for the containers somewhere on our property if that property was to be used. So this is the midpoint of the conversation, and I really thank you for taking the time to come down and speak today. I really applaud all of you folks for being concerned citizens and stepping up, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, one question further. One more thing, if I may, Mayor. So it was about 10 years ago, and I think she left the owner Chuck at Breweries here. About 10 years ago, I spent a summer in my spare time clearing the brush and the brambles off of the edge of Whatcom Creek behind what used to be the Hertz rental there. And I found a camp back in there, and a nice volunteer that lived in my neighborhood had a Parks truck stop by every now and then, and we just made it happen. But I've always wondered, why do so many people that are living on the streets congregate in downtown Bellingham versus anywhere else?
I think, well, the truth is, ask Allsops and others. There are camps in almost all parks and riparian zones. How many do we clean up every week? Yeah, we clean up about 20 a month right now, but at a height of cleanup when we still had places for people to go, it was way, way, way more than that. Police Department, Public Works, and the Parks Department. They had all of a sudden their employees not doing their regular jobs, but going and cleaning up the camps on public property. So they are everywhere. It's just that they concentrate where the services are. So there's food to eat at the Lighthouse Mission. There's excuse me? Well, alcohol is everywhere. So, but anyway, so the population center in every city is where they are if you go to any city. And it's because there's probably the Lighthouse Mission or some other facility that's there. The sheriff picks people up in the county and brings them into the Lighthouse Mission. And when they leave, they don't go back out to the county, they stay here. So it's a central gathering spot, but there are camps all over the city.
So somebody asked me, and I don't have an answer, and plus it's a political challenge. Why doesn't the city just condemn the Lighthouse Mission and move all of that stuff?
Let's see. Did you say it wasn't a political? They're doing a lot.
No, it is.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of good work, and we have actually told them that we do not want them to expand in their current location. So.
Because?
Well, because they wanted to build behind the Lighthouse Mission up closer into the neighborhoods, and we told them no.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Since we've talked about the price of the property and the option we had to buy it and this and that, would one of the solutions, would a scenario be that we purchase that property, we exercise our option, and does that allow you to find another piece of property?
Well, I mean, if we could, I can't tell you that we're gonna, that would be the easiest solution for you guys. It would still leave us with the problem of where are we gonna build a shelter where the Lighthouse Mission would operate it? Or someone else, we'd let someone else operate it, but.
So to answer the question, is that a yes, you would sell it to us on our option, or no, you wouldn't because you can't find another piece of property?
Well, no, you have first option. We would sell it to you if you wanted to buy it. We have other options too. When Dan says we have a good working relationship with the port, we're not interested in making anything about this personal or difficult, because we have way more things to do on the waterfront than this one project that we're looking at. And we think that there is a lot a lot that we're going to work on together. So it would mean, it would make us start over again. I'm nervous about starting over again because time is of the essence. It's not something that I'm willing to spend another four years on.
Well, thank you, because I'd heard, contrary to that answer, I'd heard that it wasn't for sale even if we exercise. So thank you for clarifying that for me.
Well, I mean, I don't want you to buy it right now, but it's your option to buy it.
Very good, thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions?
When's the meeting tomorrow and where? With the downtown?
Can you come to the podium, please?
Wait.
Or we'll bring you a mic.
Mike's on the way.
Is this functioning? Okay, it's at the Goat Mountain Pizza, and it is the Downtown Neighborhood Association meeting. It starts at 5, and it lasts about 2 hours. So yeah.
You might want a bigger venue.
Yeah.
Good pizza.
It's our regular quarterly meeting that we've been planning, and this got announced a little bit ago, and so we've got both floors, but hopefully this won't be I don't know if this is the last ever scheduled conversation. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. None more in the audience. Does any commissioners have any other comments or questions? Mayor, thank you very much. We're not going to be voting or making a decision on this tonight.
I didn't assume you were.
And I really, once again, respect the fact that you're trying to find a solution. Put yourself in the mayor's situation and try and find a spot. It's very difficult. But thank you very much for taking your time to come down today and address this issue.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, all of you.
Gentlemen, do you want to take a quick break or you want to slog on through?
I need to take a short break.
A 5-minute break.
Yeah, great, the bucket's full. And I'll clear the room too.
Reconvene the first item on the agenda when we reconvene the meeting is public comment for anyone who has not made public comment earlier in the day. Is there anyone? Yes, sir. Take the podium, if you will, please. Reminder of the 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Colin Lowen. I live in the lettered streets on H Street. I come to you tonight, and I missed the time where I think this topic was more appropriate, but I come to you tonight with a slightly different perspective. I'm one of your firefighters in town. I work at Fire Station number 1, which is on Broadway Street. I'm the one who responds to all the calls for aid for homeless folks. And it happens every night, and it happens several times every night. I guess a couple things I want to point out. One, I make a point of asking folks when I'm helping them where they're from. And nobody says Whatcom County, okay? I had somebody from Ashland the other night that had just rolled in. I got people coming in we have people coming in from Texas that have heard from their buddies that this is a great place to be because of services. And isn't it wonderful that we have a community that likes to take care of people? And that's great. But I will tell you this, based on my 18 years on this job working for you build this facility over here, you will near double your population of homeless. And they're going to be coming, because the word is going to get out that they're going to get taken care of here. Again, that's a neat thing. That's special because our community likes to care about people. Now, as far as the NIMBY thing, ironically, I think if it's going to be someplace down here, it needs to be concentrated with the mission. It needs to be all together there. Let's call it what it is. Commissioner, sorry, I should be facing you as well. What we have towards the mission is a blight. And we can call it what have you. It's not a pretty picture. You put that, you allow that homeless shelter to go out there, that blight will just spread. It will just be one large spread out area, and it already is right now. We know that. I would prefer to have it all concentrated in one area at the foot of F Street where you already have stuff going on. One last thing I want to address, the theft problem, okay? You move this homeless shelter to the middle of a working waterfront, and you're going to start seeing stuff get stolen. You know, is that a stereotype? Perhaps it is. I know of people who see their bikes moving around here, getting spray painted, $3,000 bicycles getting pushed around. If you haven't seen bikes being sprayed, parts being tossed here and there, you're going to have working people losing their tools, losing anything that's not attached by bolts. So I think that's the case as well. Yeah, it's not a pretty situation, but we shouldn't be putting people out of working environments for this. Thank you for your time. Again, Colin Lone, I live right up the street here. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. You have one?
I have a question, a clarification.
Yes, sir. You said you live where? I live on H and Morris, 2603 H Street. I would say
north.
It's more east, half mile.
Thank you for your comments.
It's lettered streets, so A is Astor and Morris is way at the top of the neighborhood. Yep, way at the top of the neighborhood. I used to live there, 14 years in that neighborhood.
Okay, we're going to go back to our consent agenda. Diane, excuse me, is there anyone else, public? You commented earlier, this is for anyone who has not commented.
Yeah, I just want comment in the very end. And I like to kind of let you know, 3-4 years ago, Port has a conversation in between Western Crossing to exchange the property that is behind the Hannigan Street for some acreage and a GP site. And if it's that option available to trade that, something that is behind the Hannigan for this site with the city to help solve this problem with the homeless shelter. That's what I like to say. Thank you.
So is there anyone who has not commented that wants to? Yes, sir.
John Strong. I'm a resident of Sudden Valley, so I don't really have a dog in this fight, and I didn't even know this was going on when I came here today. But what I heard, well, first of all, my wife and I are very passionate about homeless and unwed mothers, but you see what's happening in Seattle, and it demonstrates that the more you give, the more you get, or the movie, Build It and They Will Come, okay? It sounds to me like one of the major problems the city has is being hooked with an umbilical cord to the Lighthouse mission. So aren't there nonprofits outside of Whatcom County and or Washington State that may really be interested in coming here specifically to manage a center like that, wherever it is? And what's going on with the old Costco building? I mean, how many beds could you put in there? I think that the city has to, maybe take the blinders off and say, that the Lighthouse mission isn't a absolute necessity in the equation.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else? Very good. We'll move to our consent agenda. Diane?
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Gentlemen, any questions on the consent agenda?
I have a question of clarification on item B, the vessel. That vessel is now port property, am I correct on that?
It is port property now, that it didn't sell at the first auction. So we're asking the commission to declare that property surplus.
Can't buy it, Bobby.
Huh?
Can't buy it.
Now,
Can we play it?
clarification, does that allow the port to sell it outside of the bid process then?
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No, that would be just, that's why we're surplusing it, because it's port property now.
Excuse me?
That's why we're surplusing it, because it's port property now. Yeah, because it
That's
didn't
right.
sell.
Yeah, and the first step here is we try and sell that auction and get our money for the rent. Then second step is we take it into our possession. It becomes port property. In order to sell it, once it's port property, we need your permission. Typically, the next step would be to take it to another auction and to try and sell it, or to,
But we don't have to.
but it's not a requirement.
Well, you want to buy it?
Nope. I'm not allowed to buy it. Quick question, though.
So that would allow us to list it with a boat broker?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, quick question. So Halibut Henry's, they're going to be, who's managing that? Would that be?
That's Sunil.
It's a super quick question. So I thought they had some hot food, or they quit serving hot food when they?
They have hot food today as a cafe. They've got panini sandwich presses and those sorts of things. They were barred from any sort of oven that would cause a code issue or trip the electrical system, overload the system. We're talking about a tabletop convection oven type thing here.
That's all this is?
That's all it is.
Okay.
It's the,
Because I couldn't figure out, I thought they were already doing this.
yeah,
so I didn't know what.
I think coffee shops should be allowed that latitude, and so I'm in agreement with the change.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, better service.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Anything else, Bobby?
No, I'm very good.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, moving on, we have 3 action items. Could you please read the first action item, Diane?
Authorize the executive director to execute a contract with IMCO Construction of Bellingham, Washington for the Harris Avenue Shipyard interim action cleanup in the amount of $12,488,738.66, plus a 2% contingency for a total authorized contract amount of $12,718,522.26, and reallocate the capital improvement program and environmental cleanup budgets per the fiscal impact section.
Thank you, Diane. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowan, Director of Environmental Programs.
Yeah, this is, as you mentioned, Commissioner, this is actually a bundle of 3 related action items. This is the first one. I'll do an overview of the general project, talk a little bit about the MODCA cleanup process, and then and the budget reallocation that Diane mentioned that's in the action memo for the fiscal impact portion. Then I'll hand it over to the project engineer, Greg Nickel, to talk in much more detail on the actual project and the schedule and the elements that are involved in that. And then followed by that, there'll be the other 2 related contracts with Floyd Snyder and Berger ABAM for the construction management and support. But these are all 3 bundled in this single presentation.
One sec, Brian. After Greg, Adam, could you address the issues that were raised earlier by Mr. Allers and the owner of Pacific Marine when the first 2 are done? Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, so this is the Harris Avenue Shipyard MODCA cleanup interim action. And as you can see on the figure here, I think the Commissioners are well aware of where this project's at. We'll go into a little more detail as we move forward. But it is an operating shipyard. And it is worth mentioning as well that this is a significant milestone in our ongoing partnership with the Department of Ecology for not only funding, which we talked quite a bit about, but also the goal of cleaning up the historic contamination throughout Bellingham Bay. So this is a significant step forward in that process as well. So the Commissioners have seen this before, but I think just in a quick review on the MODCA cleanup process, that figure on the left shows the general steps that the cleanup goes through an initial site assessment or discovery. Then under an agreed order, we entered into an agreed order to start the remedial investigation and feasibility study process. That's the study that determines what contaminations is present, where it's at, what could be exposed to that contamination, and then the feasibility study looks at how you could address that. And there's a variety of different techniques for each contaminant source that you could do to clean that up based on the site conditions. Then typically you go through the selection of a cleanup action plan, enter into consent decree, do engineering and design, and start construction. But anytime in that process, ecology does have the opportunity or the latitude to perform an interim action, and that's what this step is. And we'll talk a little bit of how we got there. We went under the remedial investigation process. We identified the contamination. You can see on the right-hand side there that we were underway with the RIFS, and we found contamination, arsenic, copper, zinc, petroleum in the soils, PCBs, and other metals and CPAHs throughout the sediments. And that was well identified. But then in that process, we also looked at some of the existing infrastructure. And you can see in these next slides that underneath the portions of the wooden pier, we identified some really safety issues that we saw there. You can see on the left-hand side there's a pile, what remains of a pile. You can see on the middle picture there shows what was once the outline of what the original pile was, and it's been the wooden portions have been eaten away. There's failing components underneath the dock and underneath the Carpenter building. So we'd identified the need to work on those components to make this a continued functional shipyard. But that then tripped into, well, if we're going to be removing or taking out these components, we should do this interim cleanup action as well to remove the contamination that's below the dock. So we went through the process of amending the agreed order to allow for an interim action, went into engineering and design, a basis of design, and worked with the Department of Ecology. And essentially the cleanup, which Greg will go into in much more detail, is to dredge about 10,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment, excavate about 1,300 cubic yards of contaminated soil. All that soil and contaminated sediment will be transported off-site for disposal at a permitted licensed landfill. It also will remove and replace the wooden pier, and it will remove the Carpenter building, which will not be replaced. Again, Greg will go into this in a lot more detail. That also then involves ongoing ecology oversight and reporting to wrap the project up once it's done. So the last slide I wanted to show here before I hand it off is just, as we mentioned in the action item, there was, once we went through the project, not only the bidding process, but there were some interim repairs that were done to keep that facility functional while we finished up the design and engineering. We realized that the budget assumptions were did not cover the project overall. So if you see some of the reallocations of some of the projects we've done to make sure that this is a fully funded project when we go through the commission award process, the upper 2 lines there are the two budget line items that fund this project. It's the Harris Avenue Shipyard Pier and then the 2017 environmental cleanup budget. We identified a shortfall in those numbers and worked with the whole project team, which included environmental, real estate, facilities, Rob and Tamara, and we really looked really hard at the existing capital budget to see how we could reallocate funds and pull some money forward from the 2018 budget to make sure that we have a fully funded project before we go and award. So this table then, which was also in the action memo, shows some of the projects that we have either completely zeroed out, which we actually mean that we've put them on the unfunded project list. They're still high priority projects that we want to make sure that we continue to move forward, but this project, we wanted to make sure we could award the bid. We also then have found some efficiencies in some existing projects that were budgeted and reduced some of the funding, but still were able to look at completing the projects. For example, the Mitchell Way streetlights, those were budgeted at a fairly high number once we started looking at it. Adam's shop looked at gaining some significant efficiencies on that project, as well as some of the permitting for infrastructure. So we really wanted to make sure that we kept these projects as a priority, but we're going to put them on the unfunded list. The other thing we'll continue to pursue is additional MOTCA funding. We did at the time when we worked with the Department of Ecology anticipated that we would need about a $7 million grant to fund this project. As you recall, we went to Olympia a number of times and we got a $6 million grant. We were hoping that we could get this project to squeeze under with that. It turns out it didn't. We've worked with Ecology to hopefully get additional funding in this next budget to backfill some of these costs as well. And if we get that funding, we'll put these projects back on the funded list to make sure that they happen. And with that, I'll hand it over to Greg, and if we have any questions, or if you have any questions for me now, I'd have to take those.
One quick question I have. This contingency's 2%?
Correct.
Is that normal?
No, it's tight.
I'll let Greg address that one just as
Okay.
under how our typical contracts go.
That's tight.
Yeah.
I gotta say on this, where you found the money on this, Rob, a lot of these are the same ones that I was looking at in case of emergency, so I'm glad we're sort of going down the same road. Unfortunate, but, you know.
It had to come from somewhere, so I think if you guys agree, I think we're on a good page here with these. We'll find funding for them eventually, but, they're not life or death situations, so they can be delayed.
The only one that's rising to sort of a concern for me would be the BST stormwater, so if we can address that before we finish the conversation. Thanks. Not right now, but.
ASB stormwater? Oh, BST. BST, yes, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Greg Nickel, project engineer. To address your question regarding the contingency, the reason it's low is that we actually have some scope in that project, which is to remove and replace the West Marine Railway walkway. And we are in the process of working through a change order with IMCO to delete that out of the project, and that will basically supplement back the contingency. So ultimately, that's the reason that the contingency is lower than normal.
So we're not going to build the walkway?
That's correct.
And the need for the walkway was apparent before, but how do you manage that need without one?
The real estate has been in discussions with Puglia, and they're working through whether Puglia wants to do that construction themselves, or if that construction gets delayed, or if that gets negotiated in another way.
Thank you.
So to start off, I'd like to just touch briefly on the project schedule. As Mr. Kimberly pointed out, this is a very complicated schedule because we are working very hard to keep the shipyard in service throughout construction. We're also doing a lot of in-water work as part of this project, which is subject to the in-water work window, which limits us to working between August and March. This is going to be a 2-year project that's going to cross over 2 in-water work windows. We're currently planning to issue the notice to proceed in mid-April. On-the-ground work would actually start sometime in mid-May. We would then start with the first phase of construction work, which would precede the in-water work window, and would complete the upland portion of the work, and that would include the upland soil remediation as well as demolition of the Carpenter Building. The second phase of work would coincide with the 2017-2018 in-water work window and would complete some of the dredging and a portion of the pier demolition and construction. We would then go into a 6-month shutdown period in which effectively no work on site would be completed. And then in August of 2018, we would resume work when the in-water work window opens to complete the remaining dredging work and pier construction, with substantial completion scheduled for February of 2019. As Brian mentioned, this project includes dredging of intertidal and subtidal sediments, excavation of contaminated soils from the upland, demolition of the Carpenter Building and the pier that the Carpenter Building is supported by, as well as the timber portion of the Harris Avenue Pier. The need for demolition of those structures is to accommodate the dredging. And finally, we would replace the timber portion of the Harris Avenue Pier with a new steel pile supported concrete deck pier that would be in the same footprint as the existing pier.
Hey, Greg, why so many management units for the sediment here?
I'm going to let Brian speak to that one.
Just so you know, I kind of think it is one large project, and I see a lot of individual units.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Commissioner. These are based on data that we've collected, and so each one of those units has a slightly different dredge depth. So this project is dredging to clean. So some dredge units maybe go to 4 inches, some dredge units might go to 6 inches, that sort of thing. So it's really based on the data that we collected during the RFS phase of work. So,
And in this particular case, we're not looking for specific depths for navigation or anything like that. We're just getting to clean.
yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Whereas in Whatcom Waterway, we did that project a little differently. It was based on navigation depth as well as some areas were to clean. So this one is really just to get to clean.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, this project will be completed in 3 general phases of work. And we will be maintaining access to the concrete portion of the pier, which is outlined in the green box. That portion of the pier will remain throughout construction and after construction, and will remain active during construction. To make this work, we spent a lot of time meeting with both Puglia and our design team to come up with a scenario that would allow the tenant to have small vehicle access to the concrete portion of the pier throughout construction. And what we've come up with is what we've been calling a split pier alternative, in which we will demolish the existing pier in phases so that we can retain a portion of it throughout construction and keep that access. So the first phase of work, as I mentioned, will precede the in-water work window and will be limited to areas either in the upland or above the ordinary high water mark. And that work's going to include the excavation of the contaminated upland soils as well as demolition of the Carpenter Building. During that time, the pier will operate as it does today. Once the in-water work window opens, we will begin our in-water work, which will include demolition of the Carpenter Building pier. So we'll demolish the Carpenter Building before the in-water work window, and then once the window opens, we'll demolish the pier itself. We will also demolish the western half of the Harris Avenue Pier, with the eastern half of the pier being retained for access. We will also complete all of the dredging work on the west side of the site. To give you a little more detail on how we're planning on executing this, in order to have the eastern half of the pier remain standing independent of the rest of the pier structure, we're going to go in at the beginning of the 2017 in-water work window and do some reinforcing, which will include cross bracing, relocating the steel plates that are currently on the pier, and constructing a handrail. And then we will demolish the west side of the pier. Just to give you a kind of an image of what we're going to be seeing once that demolition occurs, this is a little bit cartoonish, but the green areas are to indicate areas that will be demolished. And so what you'll see is a 9-foot driving width on the east half of the timber pier. And we worked with Puglia to make sure that we provided sufficient space and capacity so that they could get the vehicles that they currently use, which is limited to about pickup trucks and light load forklifts. And so that will be the condition that you'll see between August 2017 and January 2018. Also, as part of the second phase of construction, we will be constructing the western half of the new concrete pier. And once that's constructed, we will transfer Puglia's access over to the the new western pier. And the eastern half of the pier will sit vacant effectively and maybe be used for some storage. And that will be the condition from February 2018 to August 2018. As I mentioned, there will be a 6-month shutdown, which there will be very little activity. And so we will return to the site in August of 2018 and begin with demolition of the eastern half of the existing timber pier and dredging on the east side of the site. And so we will retain the new western half of the pier with the entire timber pier being demolished. Finally, we'll move into construction of the eastern half of the timber pier with Puglia's access being on the western half of the pier for a completed 27-foot wide concrete deck, steel pile supported pier.
Okay, question.
Yes, sir.
Everything that was green in your last slide there, everything is green when you're done with that new concrete pier, all that will be gone?
Correct.
Okay.
And as Brian mentioned, the Carpenter building will not be replaced. And so effectively, you'll just see this single pier stretching out to the existing concrete pier.
Will they dredge to the west or left of your slide there, that where the Carpenter, but will they dredge that deeper so they can get more vessels up and along that pier or not?
That will be dredged to clean. We're not dredging for vessel access. It's
Okay.
Finally, just to summarize our bid results, we received a total of 6 responsive bids. The bid prices ranged from $12.5 million all the way up to $19.3 million, with the lowest responsible bidder being IMCO Construction. As has already been discussed, we did include supplemental bidder criteria with our bid, which is fairly standard procedure for a complicated construction project such as this, particularly with dredging of contaminated soils. The reason that we include those criteria is to ensure that the low bidder has the qualifications to complete the work. It should be noted that this is not a competitive process. This is a pass-fail evaluation of the low bidder only. We reviewed IMCO Construction's supplemental bidder criteria. A total of 4 people reviewed that, and we determined that they are capable of doing this work and met the criteria that we included in the supplemental bidder criteria. At that point, I can answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Briscoe, any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, but they would be for Adam, I believe. And clarification, basically, due to the testimony by the gentleman with Allers, I believe it was. As I'm not intimate with the requirements of the lowest bidder, can you explain to me what some of those requirements are? And I noticed we're changing some of the action by taking the railway out. Maybe Frank can speak to this, or Adam. Does that put us in a different position as far as that we're taking work out of the bid? And does that change the bid at all, that we need to rebid it, or can we do that?
Yeah, let me address that last one first, and then I'll turn it over to legal counsel for your questions on the bidders' criteria. I'm Adam Fulton, Director of Facilities here at the Port. No, deleting that portion of the work does not change who the low bidder is. But going in, that was a last minute addition to the project that was sort of on the wish list of the tenant. But in working with them since the bid, real estate has, they think they can do that work and accomplish a passable, adequate walkway less expensively than our bid represented.
Okay.
And on the supplemental bidders' responsibility criteria, maybe we're best suited to hear from our legal counsel.
Okay. So Commissioners, let me first amplify what Adam said about the first issue. If a deletion of a project component was a substantial deletion such that other bidders may come in, for example, a smaller bidder said, oh, wow, this is no longer a $12 million project, it's a $2 million project, then you would really have to rebid it. And so I agree with Adam on that. But for the longest time, Washington public agencies awarded contracts to the lowest responsible bidder. A responsive bidder is one who fills out the bid form correctly and provides all the documentation. A responsible bidder under the statute is one that has some very basic licenses with the state. They're licensed with L&I, they haven't, there's a set of criteria that are pretty easy to meet. In 2007, Washington amended the statute to allow supplemental bidder responsibility criteria. And what happens is at the beginning of the project in the bid documents, the port or any public agency lists out what are the supplemental responsible bidder criteria and the methodology in which those are going to be evaluated. Then all the bidders have an opportunity to complain about that before the bid. They can write a letter and say, these are not the right criteria, or I don't understand, or whatever. Then the bid goes out, and then the lowest bidder is subjected to the criteria. If the lowest bidder passes, then they're awarded the contract. If they don't pass, then they have an opportunity in the statute to provide supplemental information. If they don't pass, they're deemed not responsible, and you go to the next low bidder, and you run the process through the next low bidder. And you do that until you get somebody who is a responsible bidder. So there is quite a variability in the state of Washington about what can be responsible bidder criteria. And starting with Mr. Seeger and carried on with Mr. Fulton, the port only puts criteria in that are related to the project. Let me give you an example. When the airport was done, and there's a special kind of FAA paving, and Snow may know it's some kind of super duper paving.
P401.
Yeah. We wanted somebody that had experience laying P401 before. So that was our criteria. But the state agency that kind of looks after this, called the Capital Projects Advisory Board, allows a variety of criteria. For example, you can put in ease to deal with or reputation. You can get into some pretty fuzzy factors. Here, Adam's shop put in 7 factors that were directly related to the project. And they said either the apparent low bidder, we'll call them that because they have to pass through the responsibility criteria, they either had to have been the general contractor that handled that component or the principal sub that handled that component on a project. So IMCO could be a general contractor that hired a dredging contractor on a project, or they could be the actual guys who did the dredging or put the pier in or did the piling, either or. And the purpose of the supplemental bidder responsibility criteria is to allow a public agency to make sure that somebody can do the project. And so what Adam Fulton's shop does is they have a very careful process. They go through this. They have a committee. They score each of the 7 items. And I think it's 10 points, so you can get 70 would be a perfect score.
It's 70 points, but it's not 10 per.
Yeah. But, and they establish a passing grade, 55 or 60, whatever it is. And if they go through and score these in their judgment, and IMCO is the lowest, then IMCO becomes the lowest responsible bidder and is, subject to your approvals, awarded the contract. Other contractors have a right to protest. So we did receive a protest letter from Pacific Power and Marine. The statute says that we need to send them a letter after your action, give them 2 full business days' notice of an intent to award a contract. They have an opportunity to seek judicial review of that decision. Judicial review of the decision can never require you to award a contract to somebody else. It can only require that we do a redo of the project, of the bidding. So there's never any penalty befalls the government, and there's no attorney's fees that go either way. Rich Davis in my office, who does a lot of construction stuff with Adam, and we both looked at this. I understand my colleague, a well-respected friend of mine, Mr. Aller, says the port took a narrow reading of its responsibility criteria because it says you had to have been a general or a principal sub for this work. And Mr. Aller, as you heard, raise a point to say, well, somebody could just broker a general could just broker out all the work. That's what the criteria said. And applying those criteria, and let me just state that in the 30 years I've been representing the port, it doesn't matter if a contractor's from here or from Seattle. Pacific Pile Marine has a great reputation, no doubt. I don't think the fact that they're family-owned or anything makes a whit of difference. It's just whether you meet these criteria. It's a yes or no question, and it's in the best judgment. I don't know who was on the committee, Adam, but it's the best judgment of the committee at the time. So you were on the committee, and
I was not. The project engineer, Greg Nickel, the project sponsor, Brian Gowron, and our project environmental consultant, and then the structural consultant from Berger Abam. So our lead 2 consultants, our lead 2 project
and who's the environmental consultant?
Floyd Snyder.
So you have a Seattle environmental consultant, Floyd Snyder. They're on the committee. Berger Abam is a national engineering firm that does a lot of marine construction. They were on the committee. And port project manager, and then our director of environment. So they go down these criteria, and they did it, I think, more than once after they got the response from PPM, in fairness, just to kind of check everything over.
You're correct.
Okay. So that's where we're at. That's how the supplemental bid of responsibility criteria works. The port doesn't use it on every project. Basically the port does what, Adam, about 70 projects a year, maybe, something like that?
Maybe 50.
50, and they only use it on projects that have a technical component where we want to make sure the contractor is right. Now, I might say that we get 100% performance bond anyway, but that's no help if the shipyard guys can't do their work, because we can collect the bond, but that's little solace to the shipyard people. Right. So that's how we do it. And I might add too the comment about ecology. Ecology relies upon us to contract. They just give us a grant. We have a long history of developing and delivering these kind of environmental projects on schedule and on price. The last one, of course, being the $35 million plus Watcom Waterway cleanup project. So Adam, anything else? That explains the general process.
Thank you. Much clearer to me now.
So, Frank, you're right. We don't see these very often, and I've been here 8 years, and I can't recall having this conversation before, although we may have. So I'm going to ask.
Airport runway, the supplemental bid of responsibility.
But I don't think we didn't dig into it.
No, nobody
like
objected.
this.
Watcom Waterway, did we do it? We did it on Watcom Waterway.
Yeah, but there was no.
No.
Yeah.
Commercial terminal expansion as well.
Commercial terminal expansion, we did it?
Yeah, this is the first time we've had this conversation regarding that.
If I may, Commissioner, we typically only do it on large projects and environmental projects, because again, our goal is to protect the port's interests and make sure the contractor is capable of doing that. First of all, being life safety, which is why these environmental projects invoke that type of scrutiny. And then large projects, of course, they involve several tenants, and we need to keep our tenants in business and not have a contractor simply wrench that system.
Sure. And I want to be responsible and have a conversation, because the folks from Pacific Pile Marine are here, and there was an objection raised, so we're going to dig into it a little bit. I do have some questions about the bid criteria for the supplemental bid criteria. Is there a list that the state uses, or how do you come up with the individual points you want to put on your supplemental bid criteria?
There is a guideline published by the Capital Projects Advisory Review Board, and it's fairly broad. And like I say, my reading of it, Mr. Allers may have a different impression. The port industry about 10 years ago or 5 years ago went through a lot of discussion of this, is both project-based, and then in addition Capital Projects Advisory Review Board allows kind of what I would call soft criteria, like, have you been sued very often? Do you have a good reputation? Stuff that's very difficult to prove up. But the port, as a matter of policy, only goes with the hard criteria.
Okay. So how does your shop decide which criteria? In this case, there were 7 additional criteria. Why not 9 or 5?
Great question. We again, we're identifying the issues that we think are important to the project. Why not 7? Why not 5? Why not 9?
So there
We
were
landed on 7.
7 that were very specific. This one that
Yep.
you wanted addressed.
And they're elements that are specific to the project and what we're actually going to be doing on site.
Okay. And then when it comes to a general contractor who may or may not own a pile driver, I've been a general and I didn't own a pile driver, I would have to hire somebody with a pile driver. So I would hire a sub. And do the subs have to meet the same quote-unquote responsible criteria as the general? For example, the general has to be responsive and responsible. Do the subs also have to meet that?
They do not. Our wording is very specific that when we look for a general contractor's experience, they can either have had that experience as a general contractor or as a prime sub on a project. They weren't the general contractor. There's a little bit of confusion, I think, on the behalf of Pacific, that they are confusing self-performing the work versus general contracting the work. I would just like to take a quick moment and say that Pacific enjoys a fantastic reputation. I have absolutely no problem with their questioning this process, and I respect them for doing so. They're a great contractor, and it would have been our pleasure to work with them. But I feel very strongly that we are on the right ground making this recommendation to the Commission.
Sure. Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bishop?
I thank you for that opinion, Adam. It was graciously put, thank you.
I got a couple more, just switch gears though.
Go ahead.
Dismantling of the Carpenter building, so you're not going to walk out there with an excavator and crunch it up and throw it away. How's that going to happen?
That's a great question. I wouldn't mind, Tyler, I don't know if you're prepared to speak to that? No? It might be done by Bobcats. It's really not a very sturdy building. If you're standing in it and a forklift drives by, you're wiggling. It's also not a fantastic building in the sense of sometimes that era of building had these great big cool timbers that are 12 by 12s and gorgeous. This building has none of that. It's just a very stick frame, very plain, very flimsy building. It'll come down very easy.
When does the project start?
As soon as we award, the reason that there's a bit of a difficult schedule is one that we're having to work between 2 in-water work windows, and then, of course, the longitudinal splitting of the project. But also, right off the bat, and to deal with the Carpenter's building, there's a sequential maneuver here. One is that we complete the All-American Marine building and then move All-American Marine over across the bay from Fairhaven over here to the Hilton. Then we can move the inhabitants of the Carpenter building to where All-American currently is, and then we can take down the Carpenter building. And it's, so there's a bit of a sequence that we have to think through.
So at some point, I can sneak over at 9 o'clock and take out some windows.
You want to borrow my flat deck? It's got a hay rack on it.
I
Take the stuff
might
off.
borrow somebody's truck. I'll bring my pry bar and hammer and get those out.
The wheels turning.
I'm telling you, there's some stuff, and I like old stuff.
You would.
So Commissioner, one of the things that the Adams shop is careful about is not to specify the manner or means in which the contractor performs his work. So we leave it up to the contractors to figure out how they're going to take the building down.
One other question in regards back to the budget with the stormwater. Maybe you want to do that later. So we're gonna pull $1.3 million. Did I see that out of the stormwater work?
Yep. Yeah, I'm happy to explain that,
Or
Commissioner.
no, $1 million it looks like. Yeah. So what are we not doing at BST?
Paving. Paving basin for.
And can I just jump in here? We have a lead on some business. I'd rather not mention the company by name, but they would prefer it's not paved for some staging they want to do in that area that would break up the paving. So it works out best for both parties. We save $1 million and not paving it, and they don't break up our brand new pavement.
So how does it affect our sort of stormwater planning for the upcoming?
Yeah. So at the same, that's a very good question. So at the same time, Commissioner Fix or Director Fix is absolutely correct. It's a great fit that we don't pave it because that pavement would simply get destroyed. So what do we do in the meanwhile? We grade it, we compact gravel, and we make the stormwater treatment suitable for the potential operation and that it's gravel. Yeah.
Is there any extra cost because the system will be different? I mean, you're going to have different catchment basins that are going to be dealing with sediment that you won't otherwise get off of pavement, right?
You know there is. It's pretty minor because we have, as the commission might recall, maybe even a year or 2 years ago when we went through master planning this 40 acres of shipping terminal and designing the stormwater treatment systems for that, we had the specific aim that it would be flexible to take on any of several different tenant possibilities we could have there. So it's proving that it is going to be that for this potential tenant, flexible enough to accommodate with just minor modification. Yeah.
Fantastic, thanks.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Any other questions, Commissioner Briscoe?
Well, I'm a little confused on that. We're going to put the stormwater system in, but we're not paving. How are we going to collect the water?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Is there a curtain under the gravel? I'm assuming gravel will be there?
It will be gravel. There's not a curtain underneath it. Believe it or not, they consider a compacted gravel surface impervious, just like paving.
Okay. Then it'll flow it out.
The commissioner's intuition is correct, though.
All right.
Hydrologist, the lawn down behind the library is impervious. Well, maybe not the library. That's kind of a swamp area, but
You talk to the
yeah,
worms.
even yeah, it's just so. That's what I understand is why the city always has such a hard time with gravel lots when they're considered impervious. You can gather everything off of them, but they still don't like them. So I don't get it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for finding
here.
the money to complete this. That's wonderful. Glad we're doing that. So hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. And action item number 2.
A motion authorizing the executive director to execute an amendment to the professional services agreement with Floyd Snyder LLC for consulting support at the Harris Avenue Shipyard Matka's cleanup site, adding $548,450 for a revised total authorized budget of $2,411,465.
As Brian mentioned, this is combined with the presentation that we just provided, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have about that.
Any questions? Any questions? We have none. Thank you. Hearing no other any other comments? No. Hearing no other questions, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that passes 3-0. And our third action item?
Authorize the executive director to execute an amendment to the existing professional services agreement with Berger Egg BAM for the Harris Avenue Shipyard interim action cleanup in the amount of $587,482, which includes additional design and construction administration support services for a revised total authorized contract amount of $2,008,489.
Similarly, this is attached to the same project. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner, any questions?
I was trying to count how many words Greg just used. That was very efficient. Thank you for that. No questions.
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Our next item was going to be a presentation from the Small Business Development Council. We are going to delay that and move it to 4-4. So we have 2 more action items and then new business. So action item number 4.
Authorize the executive director to execute a professional services agreement with Pacific Surveying and Engineering Incorporated to provide design and consulting services for the Extend Sidewalk Mitchell Way project in the amount of $57,744, plus a 10% contingency for a total authorized amount of $63,520.
Not showing a slideshow. I'm sorry, it's not running. It's just, oh, there we go.
Sylvia Goodwin, Planning and Development Director, and I'm the project sponsor on this. Carl is the engineer, and he'll be joining me in a minute. This is a design project to design approximately 3,000 feet of sidewalks at the airport. Those are the green sidewalks shown on this slide. When we obtained our airport binding site plan, that allows us to create parcels for development and did some wetland fill and some other SEPA environmental review for the airport. Part of the condition was that we construct sidewalks on all of the areas adjacent to the areas that are going to develop. So the gray sidewalks are already constructed along Mitchell. Those were done last year to get sidewalks out to the hotel. Some of the roads have sidewalks on one side, like Mitchell or Airport Way, and others, Williamson, only have to have sidewalks on one side of the road. So that's why it looks a little unusual. There's, had we thought about it maybe a little more efficiently as far as building sidewalks, we might have changed the way we shaped our Phase 1 and Phase 2 areas, because we're building some little isolated segments of sidewalks. For example, Williamson doesn't ever connect to Bakerview, because at the point when we approved this plan, we were going to close that road so that the hangars could go across the road. So there's not a requirement to have sidewalks there, is why they don't connect. Anyway, we will design this sidewalks with this contract, and then after we have a design and a cost estimate, we will hopefully construct all of them later this summer. So Carl had a few comments.
Hi, I'm Carl Hathcock, project engineer for the port. This PSA consists of completing the Phase 1 sidewalks at the airport, and there are 4 areas. First area is along Airport Way, and that basically starts at the Homeland Security going past Sound Beverage up to where the road starts to curve across from B-Lot. And then we have the south side of Bakerview, which is the west side of Mitchell Way, across from Command Aviation. And we have the north side of Bakerview Road, and that goes from Mitchell Way all the way to basically the end of Woodstone's property. And the last area is along Williamson Way, and that basically starts at the Civil Air Patrol, which is right across from the fuel farm, and that continues up to the driveway of the Penske. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, Commander?
Question, I noticed the budget was $250,000 for this project, and we're at $63,520. Is there a reason we wouldn't do back to the ones that are red, why we wouldn't do those at the same time? I don't know how much the red looks like, about the same amount as the greens, which would still be at half the cost or thereabouts. Is there a reason we don't do everything at the same time?
Go ahead.
This project is just for the design for 63, then we still have to construct them.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
So this is one of the things, when I look through the budget this year, that I don't think we have to do. I've spent a couple decades looking at urban development, and I've often questioned sidewalks. And I understand why the city wants, or the county in this case, wants sidewalks, but I would rather protest this and not put sidewalks in. For example, on Airport Way, we've got sidewalks on one side already, okay? Sidewalks are great for access and for people to get around urban areas. This is a business park. Sidewalks on both sides of the road, for whom? Or even back along Williamson Way, for whom? Who's to walk here? I don't think I want to build sidewalks, and I think I'd like to go to the county with some of Frank's staff and fight it, because this is quite expensive to add more concrete, more impervious surface for zero gain and access for the public. So I don't know if I want to say no to this today or not, but I just don't think we should be building these sidewalks the way they've been demanded of us by the county, so.
Back to my question, it still is, why don't we design, why are we doing the design in two parts? If we were to do this, why don't we do it all at once?
We certainly could design all of the sidewalks. What we were trying to do is, before we can develop any of the orange areas on this map, they're identified as Phase 2. The county is requiring us to build the sidewalks adjacent to the Phase 1 areas, which are the yellow ones. So the minimum that we have to do is the sidewalks next to the yellow development parcels. And we wanted to get those funded as soon as possible, because if a developer comes in or a project comes in to develop any of the orange parcels, we go to the county for a building permit, we cannot obtain one because we haven't complied with our Phase 1 sidewalk requirement. So we were just trying to split the project, make it as less expensive as possible so that we could get it done this year.
See, here's where I struggle
Yeah.
okay, so if everybody's quite familiar, if you go out Marine Drive and you get past Bennett, and the sidewalk sort of stops, and then almost a half mile later, there's a short segment of sidewalk on the side of the bay where there's some development that was put in.
Condominiums.
The side, yeah, some condos there. The sidewalk still doesn't connect. I understand the reason for that, because they expect infill. They expect people that live there to walk and use those facilities. But where I talked to Sunil, I'm like, Sunil, we need to build some paths out here, and he says we don't have the money to build paths, but we're gonna build sidewalks. We don't have money to build pads for development sites, but we're being required to build sidewalks before we can even build a pad. I just don't want to spend the money even designing sidewalks, and we can't even find money to build the pad so we can get someone that wants to build, and then we can build the sidewalk when they come. I just don't want to build these sidewalks.
It is a dilemma, and one thing we talked about is if we're short on budget, which we were trying to be very frugal in the budget this year, is we could possibly just design the sidewalks now and then wait until we get a developer who wants to develop the adjacent parcel and then build the sidewalks. Problem is, it tends to rain in the winter, and if you wait until November or so, you've got a project all designed, you've got a potential developer, and you got to wait till spring to build the sidewalks. So we discussed this at a staff level and figured that if it's $250,000 and it will then allow that area to be developed without a delay waiting for the sidewalks, that it made sense to move ahead with it. We could possibly take a look at it and design all of the sidewalks, but we felt that after you've designed a sidewalk, that it would probably be fairly easy to take the same design with a cost estimate and build the rest of the sidewalks.
So another question in our hatched in D4, no yellow pads there. But so what we're saying is before we can put a pad in, we have to put a sidewalk in is what.
There's already a sidewalk
Yeah,
there.
and those we've done. The D4 areas all along Mitchell, we've done both sides, and those are ready to go.
See, those sidewalks make a lot of sense, because you want to encourage people to walk from the parking lots. That makes great sense.
But wait a minute. No, the sidewalk isn't, it's in green that comes to the, that would be going to the east.
Oh, I see. The one across from Woodstone, yep. Those are required to be on both sides of the road, and that was just a county requirement. If somebody was walking from the Greek restaurant up to Fly Out, they wouldn't want to have to cross the road and walk up the other side. So that was just a requirement, and I think in most cities, they do like sidewalks on both sides of the street. And I actually have seen people pulling along a luggage on wheels, walking along the road on the wrong side of the road because they're too lazy to.
Because there's free parking over there.
Yeah, exactly. So, you do see it, and when you've got a bus stop and you've got travelers with luggage bumping them over the gravel road, it does make some sense to have sidewalks, although I can agree with Commissioner McCauley that back on Williamson, that might not be a lot of people walking on those sidewalks.
Is this a special sidewalk we're designing, or is it just a sidewalk
It's just a
like all the rest of the
plain
sidewalk?
sidewalk.
And it takes $63,000 to figure that out?
Well, it's a complicated, though, because there are utilities, there are trees, there's some big trees with roots, and so siting the sidewalk around all of those issues, it's a little bit complicated. Even just, it took several of us walking along trying to figure out where to put the sidewalks on Mitchell, because do you put them inside or outside of the tree? And if you put them too close to the tree, you kill the tree. So it's a little bit complicated.
Do we have any folks that are looking at those sites now that if we delay this, it's going to jeopardize?
No.
Not specific. We did, though, have somebody look at the airport industrial park, that area D7, and one of the things that they noted is it just kind of looks like a rundown area that isn't ready to develop yet because there's not sidewalks. It's kind of overgrown. I think that having sidewalks would improve the appearance of the area and make it look a little more shovel-ready.
D7, that's the parking lot.
Did you mean another parcel?
Right, a D17, I'm sorry, my eyes
I'm
aren't so
sorry.
good, yeah.
Yeah.
What was in there?
Yeah.
It's all trees mostly.
Okay.
A lot of that area, when you drive back, we're calling it the Airport Industrial Park, but it doesn't really look like an industrial park. It looks kind of like a gravel road area with no sidewalks and overgrown vegetation. Maybe cleaning that up and making the appearance look a bit better, we might have a little better luck marketing it. And I certainly agree with Commissioner McCauley's point of maybe a gravel pad out there might work. We've even talked about trying to apply for some grant funding to do more of a shovel-ready looking business park. It hasn't been the highest priority for funding yet, but it might help us market that area.
Well, we're not voting on doing the sidewalk now. This is just designing it.
We're designing it now.
See, I didn't want to design it, because when we design it, then the county can say, well, you've got a design, why can't you build it? So, well, we don't have a design, Whatcom County, because we don't want to build it.
What responsibility for them to get their checkbook
Because
out?
McCauley doesn't want to build it. You can blame me. I don't know the planning director out there. I'll give him a call.
Does the staff feel it'd be a what are the real negative if we don't?
Well, the only negative is we've talked about developing the Wang site, for example. If we're ready to go and we've got somebody wanting to build a hangar there, we've had some inquiries.
That's D14?
Yeah, D10.
10.
D10.
We're all ready to go, but for the sidewalk. Are you going
Talking
to
the
delay it?
sidewalk out in
Yeah.
front, because we're not putting the sidewalk on Williamson Way there anyway.
And that D10 sidewalk actually does go up to the ARF station, and I don't know if you've ever gone to a Halloween lunch there and walked along in your shoes in the mud puddles because there's no sidewalk. You know, it would be used by some people. I would have walked on the sidewalk had there been one.
With the chili feed.
Yeah.
Someplace with bigger
There's
fans
an
in the seat?
idea.
I want to have it at the Bellingham building this year, so we can have go-karts too.
Your vote's no.
I'm not going to vote yes for this. I'm sorry, but this, it's not, has nothing to do with what staff's doing. It's really just a pushback. This is really just a pushback against what I think is a ridiculous boilerplate overlay where it doesn't need to be, and we're going to lose it if we try to push on it, but I'm sure Frank's staff can run up some bills and come back and tell us, sorry, you lost, but.
Might be more expensive to pay Frank than it would be to just pay the
I know.
designer.
Not interested.
That's what Dan's looking at right now. He's like, are you crazy? Like,
So this
Anyway.
design, we have a design, we don't use it for 7 years, we don't, 5 years, whatever. If we don't use it, our design still stands. We don't have to go do it
Oh,
again,
yeah,
correct?
that's-
There's no sunset.
No.
All right, well, you never know. I guess where I'm kind of at on it is, you know, I don't want to spend the money. Of course, we've got money issues, but then again, Sylvia's point of, you know, if we don't build it, they may not come. I mean, I understand that side of it too. Don't want to spend the money, but we probably need to do this to try and keep some kind of movement out there to bring some kind of aesthetic eye appeal, as she speaks to. I mean, it is when you drive past a ground just tore up place with no sidewalk, no nothing, you're thinking, well, I don't know if I want to build there. So I understand that side of it, the eye appeal to a potential customer to build there. And I guess based upon what Sylvia said, I would probably think we should enjoy doing it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think the staff would have recommended it without some serious thought into it, so I will be voting for it.
So just one final thought, because I know this is sidewalks and we're belaboring sidewalks. I'm belaboring sidewalks. Paul, right here in the front row, has had an issue with the bulkhead near the property that he leases in Blaine. For significantly less money, we can solve a problem that he's got or spend the money on sidewalks for a problem we don't even have yet. So I would love it if we could have conversations with the leadership that would be making decisions about this at the county and say, look, this is a business park. We want to invest money here, here, and here, not in sidewalks that nobody will use. And trust me, I've spent decades looking at urban environments, and I'm looking at this, and I can't find a reason to build sidewalks other than that there's a legal requirement that the county has placed on this property, because it doesn't improve access for anybody to go anywhere, except for at our chili feed.
Well, it helps for future development. Didn't we take care of your bulkhead
Well, we did.
temporarily?
We're getting there, but you can see the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I see your point. I see your
Oh, I
point.
thought there was a new problem.
No, I did too. No,
No, I mean,
okay.
we've got,
It's there, it looked okay.
Well, I would just like it if, I mean, I can do it myself, I can, be the commissioner that goes and complains at the county and say, look, we need to make sure that we are doing things that enable businesses to move here, and putting in a sidewalk instead of building a pad isn't gonna enable a business to move here. They're gonna see a pretty sidewalk and a street light, but you can go to Linden right now and see 40 acres of pretty grass lawns surrounded or bisected, but with nice brand-new streets, sidewalks on both sides and streetlights everywhere, and they're struggling to fill those properties. That investment makes it look good, but someone wants to build, they're gonna build, and Shirley's gonna sell the property because she's that good. And then we'll build them a sidewalk and we'll put in a streetlight.
Don't I understand, though, that business can't go there without the sidewalk?
The business can't go into any of the orange areas until we've built all of the sidewalks in all of the yellow areas. That's just the way it is. One thing I could suggest, though, you'll decide if you're going to move forward on this contract, but Sunil has talked about, once we finish our airport master plan update, that we might do an amendment to this entire binding site plan, just to do what would be called a minor amendment. And the sidewalks is something that we could negotiate when we do that minor amendment. We still might want to design them now, but we might be able to amend and decrease some of the sidewalks. Counties in general, though, when you're doing development, likes to have sidewalks at least on one side.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not confident in Sylvie's approach being successful, but I do think it's a decent approach. We do the phase one planning right now for the sidewalks. We negotiate on the phase two scheme, and then if we don't have to build the phase one after that, we've wasted a little bit of money, but we're prepared in case we do have to build them, that we don't have to turn away customers.
So if you do chat with somebody at the county, let them know that I'd be willing to say yes to this if they would build a stinking roundabout at the corner Airport Way and Airport Drive. Because that stop sign situation is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I agree. Yep.
My final thoughts. There you go.
May I make a friendly suggestion that we put this
Last
on?
time it was your final thought.
Oh, no. Now it is.
Well, there's not, but I'm not sure we're going to have any new information by then. We're not, in the next 2 weeks, we're not going to convince the county to let this go. In fact, if we're going to convince the county to let this go, it's going to have to be done at the county council level.
Okay, question I have, say we have a potential buyer, Shirley's done her magic, and we got somebody who wants to break ground there. If we start building the sidewalk at that point, they can start breaking ground, correct?
Probably even if we were to bond it or just to give our word as a port, the county would let us do it. The county has been very good to work with. So as long as we're moving ahead and we say, we'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today, they will let us build that building. We just have to promise that we are working on it and be making progress toward it.
So does that allow us time to do the design at that point? Or do we need to have the design done and then tell them, yeah, we're gonna build it?
You're going to be better off having the design done, because then you got something credible to go to the county with and say, look, we've designed it. We're going to take it out for bid on this date. The commission's going to award the bid on, then you've got a plan in place, right? If you just go to them without a plan in place, they're probably going to say no, because this has been going on for quite a while. I don't remember how many years, but it's quite a while.
We started in 2010 and it was approved in 2014, and we're still working on the sidewalks. We've done quite a lot. We've done stormwater, we've done wetlands, we've paid $500,000 for the Baker View interchange, but it's been a big project with a lot of conditions. But when you're done, then you're shovel ready and you're ready to develop.
Okay, since Commissioner Conley has no more comment, Commissioner Briscoe, do you?
No, I don't.
Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Passes 2-1.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. One last action item we get to new business is number 5. Could you please read it?
Authorize the executive director to execute amendment number 11 to the existing professional services agreement with Kennedy Jenks in the amount of $141,250, plus a 10% contingency for a total authorized contract amount of $783,699.
The last 2 years, we've been working on the BST Stormwater Master Plan, and it's been divided up into different basins. It consists of meeting local stormwater codes, so the 40-acre redevelopment of the shipping terminal can occur. This PSA consists of working in Basin 3 with grading for the immediate use of the stub pier and heavy emphasis on electrical improvements that will take place for repowering Warehouse 1, 2, and removing the overhead power lines on the east and west side of the site. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
So you said stub pier, conversation we were having recently is to use the old, not the chemical, the rail span, thank you, I was drawing a blank there. So that's what you meant, did you mean rail span and not stub pier?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Any questions? Any comments?
So this takes care of all our overhead power that's there, so everything's gonna be underground on the entire site?
Yes, from the ABC building on, and then we're eliminating the overhead power on the west side.
Okay.
Just to help the commissioner again, what would not be done and would still be overhead is the entrance. And the entrance is still due for some sort of reconfiguration where Beal Memorial Way leads into the
Kind of by
site.
the maintenance building there, so.
Correct, right, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No.
Questions?
Well, you know, if they had a rule that said you had to underground power lines, I'd be happy with that one, but do we have to build sidewalks too?
Sidewalks, I was waiting for that. I knew that was coming.
A roundabout sidewalk, Mike, a roundabout sidewalk.
Oh, I don't know.
No other comments, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Gentlemen, we have new business, and Commissioner McCauley, Commissioner Briscoe went first last time, so you get to go first this time.
Did I have notes?
Darn.
Economic development conversation, do we have any updates on that right now?
So both you and Commissioner Briscoe have met with Councilmember Brown. I need to get Commissioner Robbins with Councilmember Brown and myself next. I'm working on scheduling that, and I think I'll be prepared to give you more of an update at the next meeting.
Okay, all right. And the last time Rob and I talked, I was going to send the two of you an email, but I didn't do it. So I'm going to ask tonight if we can. I'd like to give Rob some more clear direction from each one of us, what we would like to see the port's specific economic development direction going. I know we've had a bit of a conversation in the past, but I want to give Rob some clear ideas about what I want, but I want you two to see it as well. So if I'm just asking if you could get Rob some specific ideas and we can sort of hash those out. So what became clear when talking with Rudd was that while I think we've given Rob the direction that we want to take a greater role overall in economic development in the county, I don't know that we've given him enough specific direction so that when you know he's having personal conversations with county council or Mayor Linville or Jack Louse, Executive Louse, that he's got a real solid understanding of what it is that we're after. So I'd like to get him some more direction as soon as possible so that he's got a little more teeth to throw out there and some ideas.
I can.
Jobs, better wages and more pay and.
Yeah, it sounds good in the campaign, but.
No, they said wagers.
Wagers, yeah, we can do better wagers too, you know.
Thanks for that.
But really quickly on that. So I will follow up with Commissioner Robbins and Councilmember Brown. But I've also, HR has been working with me on a job description for that position we've discussed. So we'll present that to you as well. And maybe we can get this on the agenda for either the 4th or the 18th of April.
Sure, sounds good. And then last year, I said I would wait until June, but some information came to light about a month ago regarding the aerated stabilization basin, otherwise known as the ASB. And in the master plan, it's been a long-term goal of the port to build a marina in the ASB. And I would like, at this point, to explore new and different options for that piece of property. We do know what a marina would look like and what it would cost, but I think given the state of the state's ability to pay for any cleanup in that and anywhere in the near future, I think we're foregoing opportunities, and I'd like to explore what those opportunities might be. So if we could have Rob start looking at what those opportunities might be, I would definitely want to get something on paper so we can either start the process of fulfilling what we might need to take advantage of those opportunities, or actually just target something other than a marina, and that would also satisfy the demands of the property places on the bay. So.
We're not taking the marina off the table. We're just looking at other alternatives at this point,
I would
because
prefer-
chances are it's going to be off the table.
Well, I would prefer we take it off the table, because I think that we know that there's going to be about a $40 million cleanup, and the only way to get that money is from the state of Washington, unless somebody knows some other method that I don't know about. And given the state's demands for things that are not contributing to the hazards in the bay, in this bay anyway. You know, if I'm a legislator and I'm in Olympia, I'm looking at Bellingham's request for $40 million to clean up something that's not contributing to a hazard. I'm putting that money somewhere else, especially, you know, in the next few years. I don't want to be too short-sighted and say it's never going to happen. I just don't think it will ever happen. And to sit and hope and hope and hope and hope without any other options on the table, I think we're hurting ourselves there. So you've got 28 acres of waterfront property you could do something else with, and I'd like to identify what those are.
I would agree with Commissioner McCauley. I think we need to move forward with something other than the thought of a marina. To me, that's ground that can be put to work. We need jobs. We need living wage jobs. I think we can all put our heads together with, we got a lot of talent in this county. We can come up with something better than a bunch of docks for people to tie their boats up to, which we really don't need. I think in the last 10 years, being involved in the marine environment, there's a lot of things that have come to light to put marinas in, and I think we have another spot we could put a marina if the time comes and we need one. It would be much less difficult to do than this project at the ASB would be to turn it into a marina. As Commissioner McCauley says, coming up with the money is going to be kind of difficult past the red face test with the state of how much more important putting a marina there would be than cleaning up another city's backyard to put business to work for them. So I'm in agreement. I think we need to move off the marina vision and move forward with better ideas what to do with that property, put it to work for the people of Whatcom County.
I certainly agree that we should look at other options. I'm not sure I want to take it completely off the table, but with the boating as it is today, it would have to be, if I remember correctly, somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 a foot.
Sorry, I think it's more like 12, but we haven't done the math in a few years, so it might have gone up.
Right. So I don't mind looking at other options at this time.
So you're referring to the price per foot to moor a boat, which would be about a little over $5 more per foot for a boat in that harbor or that marina versus the other.
Currently, we're averaging about $650, I believe, in our marinas. So yeah, and again, I haven't looked at this in probably 5 years, and at that time it was 12. So I'm sure it's gone up as cleanup costs have gone up.
Well, one of the options that was approved by the state and agreed upon back in 2000, I think it's 4, I'm trying to recall, I got the flyer in my mail, was to fill it in. And I definitely want to take a look at what that means and what opportunities we might be able to take advantage of if we do fill it in. So,
or partially fill it.
Or partially fill it in. And I bring that up because it was an option that was acceptable in this community, being Whatcom County, including the Lummi Nation. So
that was something I think we should definitely take another harder look at. If the cost to build the marina was just the cost to build the marina, I would probably have a different outlook on it right now. But given that there's more than the cost of building the marina, you have to put in money to let me start that over because it's kind of nonsense. We're going to spend more money cleaning it than it will be to then build the marina.
That's right.
So that you're looking at $70+ million. That's a lot of money.
Right.
More, oh, yeah, Rob's saying more, because, price went up, right? And we know what it costs to dispose of dredge spoils from the Wacom Waterway. And there may be an opportunity for the Port of Bellingham to reach out to other places in Puget Sound that have something that's not quite suitable for Puget Sound anymore with the new rule changes. And, we can start selling that hole in the ground, partially fill it in, get some income back, and recover some of the costs of the purchase of the GP properties and all the effort we put into that. So.
I certainly agree we should explore the options.
Anyway, that's it. New business.
You have nothing else?
Nope.
Commissioner Briscoe.
A couple of things. 3 things, I think, to be exact. Maybe one of the first things I'd like to touch on is, and I think both my fellow commissioners received the email from Rob about the hatchery manager situation over here at Wacom Creek.
Yes.
Did you get that, Mike?
I did, yep.
Okay. We've got a situation there, or apparently the new dean is maybe at odds with Ryan, I believe his name is pronounced Bassick, who is the current instructor, manager of the hatchery, groomed, so to speak, somewhat by Earl Steele, who was the previous manager for several years. I think started the program, if I'm not mistaken, with the BTC. Took ill and was required kind of to step down before he really wanted to. So things kind of been in a little bit of a turmoil over there. Ryan stepped up to help run the hatchery. Apparently there's some issues that the new dean may take with Ryan, whether they're personal or non-personal, I don't know. But the result of the situation over there is that Mr. Bassick was going to be asked to step down, and I believe he is going to turn in a resignation in lieu of being asked to step down, whatever the situation is. People in the audience or people who are watching, if you're familiar with a hatchery program, it's not something where you just pick someone off the street to take over, or you can teach a lot of things in a classroom to them on how to run a hatchery. It's a nursery, and it takes a very skilled parent to run that nursery, so to speak, if you want to put it in those words. I believe the dean is soliciting for a new hatchery tech to take the place, and then another instructor. So now we're going to replace one person with 2, which adds cost. And we're soliciting for someone to come and take over the hatchery that will be walking in off of the street, I'm assuming this, and will not have any hands-on experience with the previous manager of the hatchery and the functions of the hatchery. Now, this hatchery has operated very, very well, had a very good rate of success in placing people out of the classroom into other areas. The hatcheries, the Lummi Nation has used several of those people from over there. I feel that the positive things that have happened there are in jeopardy in asking a manager to step down in this manner and asking new people to step in. And it says to me that if you try to have 2 people do the one person's jobs that you're thinking you're not going to get as good a quality out of one person as you already have. So I don't quite understand the thought process on relieving Mr. Bassick, I believe Bassick, from that position. If a mistake is made, I understand they want to rewrite, one of the issues that the dean wants to rewrite how the program works. Well, it's one of those situations where we have a proven program, been there for quite some time. This creek is listed as one of the #1 recreational fisher areas in the state of Washington for the chum run and returns there. It's big business for the city of Bellingham. It's big business for our recreational people. It's big business for our commercial people, tribal and non-tribal. the trickle-down effect of the money that comes to the community from that hatchery is pretty big. So I think it's very important that we make the current dean aware that she may need to reflect on the decision that she's making and include other interested parties, such as the fishers that use the resource, the city that, you know, makes money off of that program. You have a program that works, it's turning young people out that are going into the workplace at these other hatcheries around the nation, really, and it's been a good thing. And I don't know why we're upsetting the apple cart, but I'd like my fellow commissioners to support me in a letter acknowledging that I believe the dean needs to reconsider the decisions he has made and maybe move forward and ask the other interested parties how they really feel about this, or take input at least, and discuss what really needs to be done there, because it is a working hatchery, and it's a very good working hatchery. Mr. Burrell is here, and he can attest to the fact that you just don't get these people off the street to make these things work. It just doesn't happen that way. So I would ask my fellow commissioners to support me in asking the dean to reconsider her decision to remove Mr. Vasic from the program and overhaul the program without further consideration from other entities.
Is there a, because I don't want the commission to get engaged in a human resources conversation that I'm sure that the college is having on their own, but is there some threat to the program, and is there some threat also by extension to the conversation that the Whatcom County commercial fishermen are having regarding expanding their program?
I would believe there is. First, on the threat to the actual biomass itself. If mishandled, programs change, things don't turn out right, you lose your stock for the minimum of 4 years. If that return is damaged within the hatchery because something's been changed, the program's been changed, how they do something has been changed, you can damage an entire run, which is a year, which is 4 years out to rebuild. This fishery that goes on here, and I don't have a dog in this fight for the fishery because I don't fish these fish, but this fishery is very important to the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack Nation. Our tribal fishermen rely on this heavily. Our small boat non-tribal fishermen rely on it fairly heavily in the fall for income. So if you damage the manner and way the hatcheries run, and you dissolve the output down to a level that only it will only stabilize itself as far as taking eggs. So you have to have the entire run back to have the proper egg take to try and build it back up. Then you do away with the fishery, be it recreational or commercial. Those fisheries will go away if there's not enough of a return to supply the eggs needed to move forward. So when you have a program that works as well as this one has, to go in and rewrite it, just to go in and rewrite it, because you want to be someone just to rewrite something, I guess. To me, when things work, there's always room for improvement, don't get me wrong. I don't know what the classification of rewriting this program over here is, and maybe that could be explained by the dean. She's been rather hard to get a hold of to find out what the thought process is behind this. But if something works, really good like this is, you don't need to fix it.
So you've heard from the employee?
No, I have not spoken to Mr. Bassick at all. There was another gentleman that has started the petition that's spoken to me at length.
I just don't think we have a dog in this fight at all. I mean, it's between the dean of the college and personnel. They aren't dropping the program as far as I know. And I just don't think that that's anything that the port should be involved in going to the dean without, I mean, if you individually know the person and want to go on their behalf to talk to the dean, I'd certainly do it. But I don't know either person or what's going on, so.
I disagree this doesn't affect the port, it does. The product that is put out of that hatchery, that the fishers catch, go to our waterfront over here and are processed.
Well, how do we know that's not gonna continue?
We don't know either way. What I'm asking is that we ask them to reconsider getting rid of a hatchery manager that knows the hatchery, is teaching the students, in lieu of bringing people in that haven't been there before. Where are they gonna, I guess I'm having a problem with taking something that I was hoping the port could be part of to make bigger than it actually is. And now we're talking about curtailing management, and people have to learn again, which is gonna slow down the process that it's taken, I forget how many years it's been there, at least 15, maybe 20.
Earl?
Yeah. So, I believe it could be economically damaging, both to our waterfront businesses that process and the industry itself, and the recreational side of things, if you can't fish at all because of mistakes made in reprogramming a program that already works. So I would say it does affect the Port of Bellingham. I'm not saying we need to tell them what they need to do, but I would ask that we ask them to reconsider what they're talking about doing.
The only thing that I believe that commission should weigh in on is the program itself, regardless of personalities or personnel involved in that program. So if there was some very carefully worded letter that was addressing their program and our support for their program and its continued success, then I would be willing to take a look at that. But anything specific to any personnel out there, I wouldn't. And I don't think it's appropriate.
I guess that's what I'm asking for, Mark. It's our support for the program that's in place, that we know it works, and it has a lot of economic value to this city and waterfront. And, maybe I didn't word it right, but that's basically what I'm after, is we say, hey, it's a good program, it's working, why are we changing it?
Well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you wanted something to do with this particular employee to keep him hired.
If okay with the commission, I'll draft a letter from the port, from the commissioners, and we'll bring it to the April 4th meeting. You have to approve in an open public meeting if it comes from all three of you. I'll circulate it to you prior to that, and then you can come and make edits to it on the fly, and we'll get it out after the next meeting.
Sounds reasonable.
Perfect.
Information from my fellow commissioners. This morning, I was asked to have a discussion with the local firefighters, and basically to do with the airport section of our firefighters. And they brought forward some issues that they wanted to talk about and deal with. So, and I spoke with Director Fix about this. I think I would like to see the port engage in discussion with these folks to see if we can settle these differences and with a little more transparency, and everybody's a little happier all the way around. I mean, there aren't really huge issues, but they are issues that the folks want to talk about. And I agreed that we should talk about it. I think some of them are legitimate. I mean, I need to hear both sides of the story. I've only heard one side of the story, and Rob enlightened me a little bit, but I think we need to sit down and talk with them a little bit and see if we can iron out some issues that have cropped up.
So I'm going to guess one is regarding the LEF situation. The LEF situation, is that one?
I believe so.
So I wouldn't, because Bobby's new here, Commissioner Briscoe, I wouldn't mind having a conversation here at some point about that whole situation. But anything, any other personnel specific things, I think we can do one-on-ones with Rob and any of the staff there.
One of the things I'd like to have, and I mentioned to Commissioner Briscoe earlier, is to sit down with Elizabeth and get some of the history here, because he met with them this morning, and first of all, they're not firefighters, they're operational folks at the operational specialists. That's what their title is. We don't call them firefighters for a reason. Their job is more than just fighting fires. They do a lot of security and other light maintenance type duties out at the airport. So we do call them operations specialists. But we'll get Commissioner Briscoe some time with our Director of Human Resources, and we'll sit down with any employees who have issues at any time and discuss things, because we want happy employees.
Yeah, I would think that the staff should take the first swing at it.
Sometimes that's all well and good, but sometimes other people need to be in the room to listen.
Sure. But regards to the left, can we have a conversation here about that? Elizabeth, can you run through that?
Yeah, we'll give you an
At some
update on
point?
that. We don't need to do it tonight, I don't
No,
think, because we're
no,
not
no,
prepared. But
no.
yeah, Elizabeth and I and can huddle, and we'll get the presentation together for an upcoming commission meeting.
They're actually going to come forward with some more information, black and white stuff that we can look at and read.
I mean, I've been consistently supportive of having them in there, but we're running up against some state rules when, in regards to this.
Right, no, I
yeah.
understand.
So we'll have, and it's okay, Elizabeth, we'll go through it eventually, but.
The other thing.
Let me just, can I just weigh in on that just real quickly? So Elizabeth Monahan, Director of Human Resources. The inclusion of the airport operations specialist into LEF isn't really our decision. We went through this a number of years ago with the IAFF. It's the Department of Retirement Systems that makes the decision. We, you, anyone here, we don't have the authority to do that. So that's where the decision lies. We can talk about what they use to evaluate inclusion into LEF, but we can't make that decision. And they've already made the decision once, and the answer was no.
We still need to talk to these people.
Oh, I agree with that.
Just because I don't want people thinking we don't talk to our employees.
No,
We talk to
we
them
do.
all the
They
time.
have come to me with
This is
things
a
they want to
constant-
discuss, and I want to discuss them with them.
Well, and I understand that, but we do discuss these things constantly with them.
I'm not saying we don't, Rob. I'm saying they came to me with some things, and I'm sharing with them that I believe we need to talk with these people. I'm not saying we don't or haven't talked with them. All I'm saying is I think we need to have a discussion moving forward so that the folks can get on the same page, because I don't, a lot of times, there's things crossing and nobody's hearing each other, and I'm assuming this is one of those times.
So when we eventually have these conversations, even if they're one-on-ones, we'll have to have probably Elizabeth in the room, because we can't be discussing issues in regards to the bargaining unit, which may be separate from just personnel issues, which are not related to the bargaining unit. Just want to make sure that we're very careful about that.
Several different things they
Yeah, I don't
want
want
to
to
talk
get,
about.
I don't want to get Rob in any trouble with the bargaining unit, with IAFF.
I don't want to get anybody in any trouble either, but I want to make sure that when folks come to us and they want to talk to us about things, that
Yeah.
we respond.
I think Commissioner McCauley, what you're kind of referencing is that you shouldn't engage in bargaining.
I'm not engaging in bargaining.
That-
No, I wanna be
but
really-
talking,
yeah.
talking is great.
Yeah, we
Talking
gotta-
is wonderful, and
yeah.
listening too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else?
One more.
Okay.
And Mr. Brill jogged my memory. And it's a question for Shirley. If we, I know we look through our leases and we try and keep things in line with businesses, all our businesses, business types, that their leases are pretty much in line, that we're not overcharging one and undercharging another and so on and so forth. And have we done that lately in Blaine with all of our businesses that lease properties from us?
Shirley McFerrin, Real Estate Director. We have not, but we are in the process of developing a water-reliant marine trades rental policy that will be discussed with you at the next closed session, and then hopefully we'll be able to bring it forward on April 18th. So we're looking at all marine trades rents. So we have some thoughts on that I'd like to hold for further discussion.
I just was curious if we've done that lately, or if we would, thank you for that.
But Blaine is included in that.
Okay, thank you.
See, this is where patience pays off, because I think I came to you about 5 years ago with the question there, so we're getting there, yeah. Not, that sounded blamey. I'm sorry, I didn't, okay, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Is that a word, blamey?
Anything else from you?
Frank, do you have some new business?
I have an additional item.
Okay, all right.
Let me introduce the item, then I prepared a motion for Diane. Resulting from the 2012 incident at the Bellingham cruise terminal, the state of Alaska has been in discussions with our then insurance carrier. We've subsequently gone on to other carriers. The carrier, Star Indemnity and Liability, has been great to work with, and they have reached an agreement concerning attorney's fees that Alaska expended in this operation. And we're a party to this. And so essentially, there's been a settlement of the Alaska's request that STAR reimburse them for attorney's fees. It does not cost the port anything. We were scheduled to mediate this issue tomorrow in Seattle. So Rob and I are very grateful we don't have to drive to Seattle tomorrow because that has been put off. The mediator, who we have used in the past, I can't remember the cases, a guy named Lewis Peterson is not going to charge us for the time he put in so far since we canceled the mediation. So I would, maybe Diane, if you could read the motion then.
A motion to authorize the executive director to approve the settlement agreement between the state of Alaska and Star Indemnity and Liability Company.
And one of the things we wanted to accomplish here was make sure our customer was happy. They are happy.
The customer being AMHS.
AMHS.
Alaska
And I got to throw in a bone to Alliant, our broker. They did an outstanding job of helping clarify some insurance issues and being very responsive to Alaska's requests. And so I think everybody's happy now.
So we're authorizing this because Star worked for the Port of Bellingham.
Correct.
We have to say yes that they can settle.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're not,
Doesn't cost us any money.
so they're not necessarily settling on behalf of the Port of Bellingham. They're settling on things that aren't even really related to us.
Well, Alaska had claims that sounded in breach of contract under the lease and also against Star, and, you know, it's kind of jumbled together. But Star stepped up and took care of it, and so they're releasing the port and Star from any claims.
Right.
We're not releasing anybody. The Alaska's releasing
Yeah.
Port and Star.
This $240,000 that our insurance company is paying Alaska is for?
Attorney's fees and expert witness fees.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
What's an expert witness fee pay? What must be pretty good money?
Oh, it's better than a lawyer, I mean, I tell you.
So can I complain about sidewalks and lawyers tonight, or should I just move on?
Lawyers are always open
What
season,
schooling do you need to be an
Commissioner.
expert witness?
After 6 o'clock, lawyers are open season.
The motion is out there. Can we vote?
Any other discussion?
I have no discussion.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you,
Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Do we have any other new business? Commissioner Briscoe. Commissioner McCauley.
I'd just like to thank everybody for hanging around.
I think this might be a record for a length of a
We made
meeting.
8:30 once, didn't we?
We've made it past.
I think we made 8:30 once.
We have one, yeah, okay.
I think that was when Commissioner McCauley was bragging about how long the meetings were.
We are adjourned. I'm sorry.